District special meeting of the Board of Education for January 24th. It is 9 a.m. and one of the Rialtonians that used to be on NCSEA, you may remember when I say, she used to say, "Oh, dark 30," and it feels that way. Okay, we're in open session, so Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have anyone? Angie, would you lead us?
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Alvarez, do we have any comments on the agenda item?
No public comments submitted.
Excuse me, I did.
Oh, they buried it, sorry. Thank you. Yes, correction, there is.
Okay.
Tobin Brinker?
Good morning, members of the board, Superintendent Alvarez and Board President Mr. Martinez. I'm here today to talk about a pattern, not a one-time accounting quirk, but a repeatable result with real consequences for the people who keep this district running. Every June, you adopt a budget projecting what you will spend on certificated salaries, classified salaries, and benefits. Those line items are district promises on paper about how it intends to staff our schools and support the people doing the work. But for 5 straight years, every year since 2020, 2021, that promise has missed the mark by millions. Comparing adopted budgets to audited actuals, the gap totals over $73 million in salary and benefit savings across 5 years, or about $14.6 million per year. Here's the breakdown. 5 straight years of savings in certificated salaries equaling $27.8 million. 5 straight years of savings in classified salaries, $19.5 million. 4 out of 5 years of savings in benefits, $25.7 million. This isn't mysterious. The district consistently budgets for more employees than it actually hires. When there are fewer employees than the budget assumes, you don't just save on salaries, you save on benefits too, and those savings are not accidental. They're predictable, recurring, and now, frankly, structural. We've also been told that every 1% raise for employees costs about $3 million, so 2% is about $6 million. If employees had received an additional 2% 5 years ago, the district would still have realized roughly $43 million in savings compared to what today's adopted budgets projected. But our employees would be better off today, about $30 million better off in earnings that would have gone into rent, groceries, childcare, gas, and retirement, instead of sitting on balance sheets as savings. And if anyone thinks this is limited to just the last 5 years, we can go back further. Over the last 11 years, savings occurred 11 out of 11 years for certificated salaries, 10 out of 11 years for classified salaries, and 8 out of 11 years for benefits. Over that same period, the adopted budget predicted deficit spending 10 out of 11 years, but when the audited actuals arrived, all 11 years ended with significant surpluses. Those surpluses rolled over until we began this year with a $203 million beginning balance. 11 years ago, the starting balance was $35 million. My point is simple. When the budget repeatedly overestimates staffing and repeatedly produces large savings, that's a system that shifts resources away from people doing the work and then asks those same people to accept less. It's time to prioritize the people who educate our students, feed our students, transport our students, and keep our schools running. You've asked more of us for the last decade. Please don't be offended that we're asking more from you now. Thank you.
Great concept of asking more. How are our CASP scores doing? If I gave you 5%, did you earn them? Okay, thank you. Adoption of the agenda. Motion and second, please.
So move. Second.
Thank you. Vote by board members. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, board workshop. Motion and second, please.
So move. Second.
Okay, the Board of Education will conduct a budget workshop to review and deepen its understanding of the district's financial outlook. The workshops will focus on the district multi-year projection, key fiscal assumptions from the January governor's proposed budget, and the status and financial planning of the current bond program. The purpose is to support informed governance, long-term fiscal stability, and alignment of resources with district priorities. Okay, no student this morning, so are there questions or comments from the board? Hearing none. Dr. Lewis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez?
Aye.
Clerk Williams?
Aye.
Vice President Montez?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Okay. Well, on to the presentation, I guess. Doesn't say we're going into closed session. I want to remind the public before we start, when you hear the union speak, they are talking for the adults, the workers, the staff that do take care of your kids, my kids. They love them, no doubt. Some of them work harder than others, just like anywhere else. But when you hear the board and this presentation of the budget and intent of how to spend it, it's for the kids. Sure, we want to take care of the workers, but the budget, education is for the kids, not for the adults. So, on with the good news.
Good morning, Board. My name is Diane Rommel. I am your Associate Superintendent of Business Services, and this morning we're going to start with your bond overview. With me, I am going to have Angie Lopez presenting, and so together we're going to walk you through how we've used our bond measures, our current project, and the exciting things that are going to be happening in the future. Just as a reminder, a general obligation bond is a financing tool used by public entities to issue debt. The proceeds from that debt are used to modernize our schools, construct new buildings, bring, facilities up to code. And the way that this is done is we as a district present the community with a bond measure on their ballot. If the community has confidence in the district's ability to use the money wisely, they will give us their support and it is passed. The way that the community pays for the bond is that they see an ad valorem tax on their tax bill. Normally, it's listed out by the year in which it's issued, and there is a cap that is established at $60 per $100,000 of value in your home. And so we, in our bond measures, have had very strong community support, and I think that's a testament to their confidence in the school district. Although the bond only has to be passed with a 55% approval rate, and I say only because actually that's a high number to achieve when the, I'm going to point to Saida, where'd she go? Media Services and my team worked really hard to make sure the community understood what we were trying to do, and they were out there rallying. They were on corners with street signs. I think some of the board members were out there, and we ended up getting 69%. So that was a really high turnout and support for our bond this last time. And so we typically receive calls about, what are these taxes that say school district on my bill? And with this last round, I think we did such a good job of informing the community, and they can see the work in action, that we've gotten a handful of calls. Like we hardly have had any pushback on it. So currently, there is a little bit of delay between the screen and the displays. If you go on to the second page of your presentation, you will see that we have two outstanding measures. Measure Y was passed in 2010, and the community approved it for $98 million with also a 69% approval rate. This bond was approved to acquire, construct, and improve the quality of education, classrooms, support facilities, CTE, replace portables, and increase access to modern technology. In 2022, we passed Measure A. This bond was passed for $340 million with a 69% approval rate, and it was passed to upgrade our schools, our fire security safety systems, science, engineering, math, art, vocational classrooms, replace drinking water, pipes, gas lines, leaky roofs, portable classrooms, electrical wiring, remove asbestos, lead paint, and mold. Why are these two statements important? When we pass a bond, there is bond language that outlines what we're authorized to use the proceeds for. And so when we are looking at our needs, we try to make the language as broad and encompassing of what our facilities master plan has determined to be our need. And so as we go through the presentation, we'll provide more information as to how this ties back to some of the compliance elements of issuing a bond. If we look at the numbers, when you issue a bond, you're authorized to sell bonds for up to a certain dollar amount. Not 100% of what you're authorized is sold at the same time. So for Measure Y, we were authorized for up to $98 million. In 2011, Series A and B were sold for $36,627,187. Because the time at that time the market was doing well, we were able to sell at a premium. So we actually sold at a higher value than what the bonds were issued for. And so what that does for our community is that the premium goes directly back to paying for a portion of the bonds. So we don't get that money as a district to use for projects, but it does get used to fee some of the debt. In that issuance, our cost of issuance was approximately $1.2 million. We paid off debt that the district had at a higher interest rate. A portion of those proceeds were also put towards future debt payments. And so in the aggregate, 9.1 million was used for other purposes and 28.4 was available for projects. In 2015, we sold another 32 million. At that time, our cost of issuance was 268,000. And again, a portion of the proceeds were used towards a future debt payment. It's similar to when you purchase a home and you purchase in the middle of the tax period, and you get kind of like a supplemental tax bill, and part of your escrow documents include that additional amount to cover the supplemental tax bill. It's a similar concept when it comes to the bond. So at the time that we closed, we had an outstanding or future payment of 303, and so of what we received, we had to put that amount into our escrow account, which is an actual account within the school district's finance. It's held with county treasury, and county treasury helps us make our debt payments for the bond. Under this measure, the net proceeds for projects were 31.4 million. Then in 2019, we sold the remaining amount of the bonds for 29.3 million. Again, at this time, we sold at a premium of 946,000. Our cost of issuance was 369,000. We deposited into our interest and sinking fund for 766,000, and the net amount available for projects was 21.1 million. Keep in mind that pre-COVID, the cost of construction was probably half. After COVID, the cost of construction skyrocketed. And so although at that time it was 98 million versus 340, which is what we passed recently, the purchasing power was higher. And so Angie will go through all the different projects that we were able to accomplish with the 98 million. In this next slide, we just wanted to give you a more detailed account of how the proceeds were used and for what projects. I'm not going to read off every single project, but what I wanted to highlight is at the top, you'll find the net proceeds for each of the bond measures that were sold. We, as a district, when the opportunity arises, we do apply for state funding. And so for one of these projects, we actually got a hardship grant for 2.2 million. Because our proceeds are held in a county treasury account, we earn interest. And so the interest earned does get used towards projects.
Do you remember the percentage?
The interest rate varies depending on the market. So whatever the current, I can't cite what it is right now, but whatever the current,
0.4 or something like that.
no?
I believe it's less what you would get in the bank account and the general savings account. The interest earned in the county treasurer is very minimal.
We can
But
get that
the dollar- yeah,
information.
But we can get it
Yeah.
to the board, yes.
And then if the board recalls, we pursued litigation against a vendor. And so the 300,000 that you see that on that line item right there is the settlement that we collected from them. And so, again, the money was put towards projects. And so, in the aggregate for this bond measure, we had 95 million. And below that, we have all of the different projects that the proceeds were used for as of June 30th, 2025. And so just to highlight some of the big projects, this is the measure that paid for the Eisenhower Theater, the Eisenhower Stadium, a portion of the two-story classrooms. We renovated science labs, and I'm going to pass on to Angie so that she can kind of walk you through each of the projects and the process.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Board President, Mr. Martinez, Board of Education, and Superintendent Dr. Alvarez. I'm Angie Lopez, Director of Facilities. And so I'm just going to go, I'm going to have like a brief summary of what the planning and construction process is. I just kind of want to hit on like the main points. There's a lot to the planning and construction process, but I'm going to try to go over kind of the main points that we have to work through. So when we start with the planning process, of course, we have to, as a school district, we are governed by the Division of the State Architect, which we call DSA. So most of our school facility projects have to go through the review and approval of DSA. That process, depending on the project, can take anywhere from 8 to 12 months. So I know sometimes when we start projects and they seem that they drag forever, it's because we are governed by DSA. A lot of the times, DSA works with the district and the architect. And so we submit the plans, and it's just they review them, they have comments, we have to respond to the comments. A lot of the times they require changes depending on what the project is. It could be ADA changes, it could be other code compliance changes. The code typically changes every 2 years, so we just have to go. It's the review process can take up to 12 months, and then with that, we also have other agencies that we have to comply with. A lot of the times is the city, county, water boards. We have to work with a lot of a project. We have to work with Southern California Edison, which it's also another entity that takes a long time to review our projects. That is why sometimes either the projects take so long. Yes, Mr. Montes.
Regarding matching funds, DSA has to approve the projects, sign off on them, otherwise the matching funds are not valid, is that correct?
Correct. If we apply for state funding, we definitely need to have DSA approval on the plans. And we also have to have CDE approval, California Department of Ed, whenever we apply for state funding.
So if the construction's not built right or if changes need to be made, that type of funding ain't available until all of that is finalized.
Yes, until we have DSA approval, correct.
If I can just, Board President Spencer, just clarify, there are times when a school district will complete a project and fully pay for it and still be able to submit for funds from the state, depending on the timeline, and then get reimbursed. That's why it's important for school districts, when they go out for bid, they actually follow the requirements that the state has put in for, when using state funds for construction, we do a pre-bid process, all the stuff that they require. It's important school districts really follow those procedures in case opportunities come up to apply for certain funds available from the state. Later, after you may have started your project, you would be eligible because you actually followed those criteria.
Right, there is that option where there's many times where the state funds can be at a later time. Yeah.
Let's make sure we don't let that slip.
Yeah. Well, right now the state has no funding, so they have no funding. But hopefully in the future there will be some state bonds that will be passed, so I'm always watching that. So going back, so the way that we basically start with our process for projects is we do a facilities needs analysis. So that means we analyze all of our sites, our projects, what are the facility needs in the district. We have a facilities master plan that was approved by the board in 2023, I believe. That was based on the facility needs of the district. The facilities master plan is usually like the roadmap of what the district facility needs. We typically update that 3 to 5 years. Between 3 and 5 years, we have to update so we approved it in 2023. This is the time where I'm starting to look at it to see what we have accomplished that is in that facilities master plan, so we can begin to the updating process of the facilities master plan. Next, we of course identify the funding sources, any state funding available, if there is any funding available, bond, developer fees, any other funding that could be available for projects. So we identify the funding sources, and then we begin the design and planning stage, where we hire an architect firm. I think it was in 2022 when the board approved a pre-qualified list of architect firms. I think we have about 8 or 10 on that list that were pre-qualified by the board. We did an RFP, which is a request for an RFQ, which is a request for qualifications. And so we did when we received their RFQ, we reviewed it. We held interviews with the architect firms, and then that's how we did our selection process. I think 8 or 10 were selected, and they were brought to the board for review and approval. And so that's what we have. Typically, the pre-qualified list can be updated every 5 years. So if we wanted to do that, we could update the pre-qualification list of architects. Once we select an architect, then that's when we start our architectural design. And the architectural design has several phases. So the first phase is the design development phase, and so that's when we kind of we kind of look at what the project is. We start with our possibly the very early on cost estimates. We look at what we want to build, and so it's that's kind of where we kind of do the basic analysis. It's a feasibility analysis of what the project that we're looking at. And so that's kind of where we start. Then it moves on to the design development phase, where we refine floor plans. We look at structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing concepts of the project, if there's anything that needs to be updated. And so at this time is when we kind of have a better view of what the cost estimate's going to be for this project. Then we meet with, of course, the stakeholders, if it's, the principal, we're going to be building special education classrooms, we meet with the special education department. We bring everybody that is going to be involved with this project, we're bringing them all together. Of course, maintenance and operations is always a critical part of all of our projects. And so that's when we kind of all sit together with the architect and let them know this is what we are. This is our vision for this project. This is what we want it to look like. This is what we want to do. Then the architect goes and designs whatever, the project is going to be. We have a lot of meetings. They come to us. We have a lot of concepts, renderings. We start picking the materials, the flooring, things like that. Once we have all of that kind of tuned in, we go into kind of the final stages where it's the construction document phase. That's when we finalize the drawings, and we make sure that the project is in compliance with all the ADA components, the building codes, everything like that. And so at this point, that's when it's going to be submitted to DSA for review. And so that's where our waiting begins for them to review the process. Once we get DSA approval, then we go on to the bidding phase where we bid the project, and then we begin construction. So that's kind of just in a nutshell.
Sandy, I have a question.
Yes.
For the DSA, do we get chronic updates on?
Into the microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. For the DSA, do we have chronic updates in regards to the updated codes? In regards to, because I know that in the past we build and they're like, oh, there's a new code, so we have to tear down, break up, and all that stuff. Do we have all that?
So-
how often do we get those updates?
So typically, the DSA codes update every 2 years. There's been instances where maybe they have updates sooner than every 2 years. So if we begin a project, let's say we begin a project this year, and the code is it's up for update next year, and we're still going through the planning phase, and then we submit it to DSA, and during the DSA's review, they have updated the code, then we're going to have to make the changes to the new code. So that does happen. In the past, DSA used to have like a grandfather rule where if you submitted it, they would grandfather you into the previous code. But that is kind of, I've seen it more and more recently that they're not. Yeah. Now it's more like, okay, we changed the code. These are the new code. And so we need to update your drawings while they're in DSA. And even when we're in construction, sometimes DSA has a field engineer that is assigned to the area, to our district. During construction, he does visits to our projects, and anytime he can come and say, this does not comply with current code. You have to change it, and we have to change it.
Of course.
So yeah, yeah. So. Also during all of these phases where we're designing and planning, we also have to do, at the beginning of this phase, we have to do all of our testing. We have to do geotechnical soils testing, hazard materials assessments, topographic surveys, underground utility scans. All of these testings have to be done in order to be able to design the project. And we work hand in hand with the architects and the consultants to get all of these testings done. So I already talked a little bit about the Division of State Architect and the time that it takes to review projects and the other agencies that we have to work with and comply with. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the bidding and the contractor selection. As you are aware, as a public entity, we follow the public contract code. So we have to go through public competitive bidding for our projects, and so that's what we have been doing. So as a public entity, we have to go with the lowest bidder, and so
That's not always,
This option.
that's not always.
that's not always the best, but that's under public code, that contract code. That's what we have to do. There's other construction methods that we are starting to explore where they're based more on the contractor's experience, and so we're trying to explore other construction delivery methods that we might be able to implement in the future that will give us better contractors. Because we haven't had very good luck with the contractors.
Are you looking for capacity? Because you were saying you had a pre-list of architects, but do we have that RFP for contracting experience and service? Did we-
Yes. At the
So we
same
have a
time,
list.
yes. At the same time that we did the architects, we also did an RFQ for construction management firms, and we have three firms.
You only have three?
Three firms on the list.
So you go by that list, so theoretically, they should have the capacity.
Well, the construction management firms are who manage the project, but for the contractors that do the work, that's who we have to do public bid.
Okay.
So
that's-
for them, no, we
Okay,
have to
that's
do,
individual.
so we do pre-qualify them. They have to be pre-qualified with the district, but the pre-qualification process is not as stringent as I wish it was. It's basic questions on their finances, on their experience, and we do check references. So, but it's just not as, as it should be. But we do have a pre-qualification process. So before they even do any work for the district, they have to be pre-qualified.
So we can create a more stringent list for,
Yes.
with your
Please.
experience, or is that a state code? That's my-
Please bring us your recommendations so we can update that and help you on that.
This particular process is sensitive in the sense that if the state has issued you a contractor's license, if you meet our bonding requirements, if you meet our insurance requirements, if you meet prevailing wage, if you meet all of the things that in statute you are required to meet, and the references you have provided clear, it is really difficult for us to disqualify you. The disqualification might come from more qualitative data that may not stand up in a court of law. And so the remedy that we have for this is that when we do encounter a vendor that has not worked out well, even though they were the lowest bidder, we come to the district with some sort of document to either disallow them to do business in the district for a period of time. And you recall that we wrote that into a settlement agreement, or we completely bar them. But it is difficult for us to have a stronger process, which is why Angie alluded to the fact that we've been looking into other delivery methods where we have more control over the quality of the contractor and not just price.
Can you clarify what delivery method? Define that.
Do you want to?
I think it's important just to clarify, we are talking about contractors, not architects, not
Right.
construction management
Yes.
companies. It's the bid process for contractors to actually do the work.
Ones
Yes,
that lay the cement and
Yes, pull the wire and yes.
yes.
Well, the real problem is the contractor has subcontractors we have no control over.
Correct, because the
Unless-
subcontract is
they're
with the
responsible.
contractor.
They're
Can we
responsible.
adjust our specification so that we have a little more control? Meaning you only hire contractors with these proven histories.
I know we were trying to go more local.
Yeah.
That
things,
doesn't
so-
always give us quality.
There is
Well, I
a,
know they just added that language, so I'm
Yeah.
saying they probably do that.
there is a process normally you could do, and I'm not sure if it's done here before, but you pre-qualify contractors based on the project, and then they're based on that pre-qualification process, then those are the ones who actually are allowed to bid, but then you still have to go through the least responsive bidder. At the end of the day, the district could choose to cancel the bid and do it over again.
Yes.
So that's always an option as well.
So, Dr. Lewis, to answer your question, there are several construction delivery methods, and so the design bid build, which is what we use here, it's where we have to abide by the public contract code. There is another delivery method that it's known by leaseback, and so that we have with that delivery method, the district has more control as to choose and to pick and choose the contractors. The contractors are vetted more on their qualifications, their experience, past experience. So that is it's a delivery method that has been used for many years by many districts. So we are looking at that. And in the future, we will bring more information to the board as to what that delivery entails and what that delivery means. So right now, we're kind of just doing some research and looking at that possibility.
The qualifications that we specify for the contractor, can't we also specify that each of the subcontractors have the same qualifications?
With the leaseback delivery method, you typically can.
But not our,
With the public code, because we pre-qualify the contractor, not necessarily the subcontractor all the time. So
we could
yeah.
ask them to submit a list of their contractors?
They'd have to. When they have to submit in their bid, they have to submit a list of subcontractors. That's a requirement.
So we follow them as well as the main contractor.
Yes, but typically the subs are under the contractor, so they are not directly contracted with the district.
But we can require that they, that we pre-approve their subcontractors. We can ask for that list.
That
Our-
list, yeah, that list has to be part of their bid. They have to list all of their subs. Yeah.
It's tough to get around Sacramento.
So, I think you guys could probably do a workshop just on this area, but, just so we're clear, you have the you have the architects is one group. You have the, contractors is another group. You have the construction management companies, that's another group.
Yes.
And they all kind of sort of work together.
Yeah, it's the team. We call it the team.
Aside from those three groups and the district, then you have the district facilities and our people. Besides them, what other groups are involved?
So,
Aside from the state and the local agencies like you talked about.
so we have consultants, like I said, we have consultants that do the testing. We have consultants for that. And then, of course, we have an inspector that we hire, that oversees the project from beginning to end. That's, we have a DSA inspector that we hire to oversee the project. And then, of course, there is the DSA field inspector that is a
Part of
DSA,
this.
that it's a DSA employee that also oversees the project.
And you mentioned some of them are limited to following certain bidding processes for the contracts, but is there specialized work that does not have to be followed, or is not as regulated in how the district selects for special services?
So, the architects, like I said, we don't have to follow the public contract
lowest
code.
bidder,
Yes. We go by their qualifications or experience. We do an RFQ, and that's how they are selected. The same is for the construction management firms. They are selected through an RFQ process based on their experience, qualifications, and all of that. The consultants, the testing, all of our consultants, all of them, the same thing, RFQ process. Our DSA inspector that we hire, again, an RFQ process based on his experience, and yes.
And those also, so all of those qualify under the special services required, and you're not obligated to have to go with the lowest.
Right, yes.
And that's the same for your trades, right? That's really going to fall under your subcontractor?
For our trades, they have to go follow the public contract code. That's where we have to select the lowest responsible bid.
So you're putting chairs in and you have a poster. an upholsterer is working with the contractor. That upholsterer really don't have to go.
That would be a sub to
Right.
the contractor who was awarded the bid to replace the seats.
And that's where we're really trying to utilize our local people to work with the contractors on these big projects, because no way will they have that bond and amount and insurance. So I think that was the area we was trying to say, can we utilize some of our local?
I think it'd be good for the board, for those of us that were here back in those years, to just update Dr. Alvarez on what the direction of the board was at that time. And I think most of the staff, would you like to update, well, everyone here?
Maybe about 3-4 years ago, the board asked us to ensure that we had an opportunity for our local vendors to participate in our projects. And so when we researched our subcontracts, we found that one of two things. The subcontractors were registered in the Inland Empire, or the majority of their labor force was coming from the Inland Empire. And so although you may have the contractor out of LA or somewhere up north, the actual labor force or the subcontractors were from the Inland Empire. Something that we have also seen within maybe like the last 2 years is we have gotten more local bidders on our jobs. And although we have had some bad experiences that Angie and I inherited, some of our recent vendors have been amazing. And so the more that our community comes out and learns about our processes, the more that we get to work with different individuals who may or may not have potential, right? But until we try it, we don't know. We hosted 3 or 4 sessions of the vendor registration process, and we had a decent turnout every time. And so this is the way that we make ourselves more accessible to the community, and the community feels comfortable coming in. And the most recent project with the cement company at Hugh Banks, that's a local vendor. They did an amazing job, and they're local. And so it's nice to see that our community, we're supporting each other. So we anticipate that to happen more.
Thank you for following through on that, because that hasn't always been the case in this district, and I'm sure in others as well.
Well, we made it the case, and we followed through.
Yeah.
There you go.
And then, are you guys gonna continue having more of those vendor registration workshops, so that way, we can continue having more of that local open communication?
Absolutely. We start the contract process for the upcoming year in the springtime.
Okay.
And so we'll schedule times around April, May, June, so that people can come and understand what our process looks like, what are the requirements, understand that some of those requirements are there for their protection.
Correct.
Because a lot of times I think we can appear to be burdensome, but really, like, when we explain how this protects you as a vendor, and it makes it a little more reasonable. We explain that we understand that you may have to modify your costs to absorb the additional insurance and things of that nature. It's dialogue and understanding that you're here to support us and we're here to support you.
And also, I think, like with the subcontractor situation, some of the subcontractors wind up doing a lot of the work for the contractor, and ultimately the contractor is the one responsible. But some of those subcontractors don't qualify like the contractor does, so they get some of the work or a lot of the work through the contractor. And that's what I think a lot of vendors need to realize is maybe they don't meet the requirements for the full project, but they can do part of the project while they can work with the contractor that's been awarded the work, in order for them to provide what they can do of the project. So a lot of people get discouraged. Like, for example, years ago, the Rialto, our local historian for the city of Rialto, a guy named John Adams, over at the Adams Family Farm down there at the edge of Rialto, they used to have huge orange grove, generations ago. The orange grove that he has left, this was years ago, he wanted to sell the oranges to the school district, and that was before, we got some of our own orange groves or whatnot at the schools. But he couldn't meet the requirements, but one of the other farms that he provides oranges to does supply the school district. So that's things like that vendors need to know, what are all of their options, or how can they provide a service or work to the district if they can't do it directly.
Yeah, definitely. I like to chit chat with the people who work in our district, and so I've learned that a lot of these subcontractors have a hard time meeting bonding requirements, because to be bonded, and we require a bond for any project over 25,000, it's really difficult. And so you're absolutely right. Like, if they are aware of the larger contractors in our community and they reach out and contractors want reliable individuals, it's a great opportunity.
I wanted to ask about the contract management piece. Is it a requirement, like state or federal or whatever, to have the contract management? Is it something that we have the capability to do in-house, or is it something we do to like leverage their knowledge or relationships?
So the facilities department here is very small. It's only a department of 4 people, which is myself, and I have a project manager, George Palma, my secretary, and then my accounting technician. So it is a very small department. Other districts that are bigger may have all the staff in-house. There are few districts that have that staff in-house that can do everything that a construction management firm does. But here, because we have such a small department, the construction management firm is very helpful.
Okay, thank you.
I think years ago,
Hold on. Are we doing okay on time, or are we asking too many questions?
I think the questions are
good.
covering a lot of the stuff that's coming up, so we're basically covering.
Then we could wait.
I think we're good.
Board President, if I can just add one comment on the construction
Absolutely.
management. Like I mentioned, depending on the size of the school district, you might be able to handle it yourself. But when you're really talking about bigger projects, like, I'll just use a bigger example. You're building a brand new school. You wouldn't want, even if you had the capacity, a bigger district, you wouldn't want one of your employees overseeing that project, because the construction management person, when they assign someone to the project, they're there pretty much every day on site from the beginning of the project to the end. They're monitoring the work of all the contractors. They're coordinating the inspector of record coming out. They're coordinating with the other specialized services. They're coordinating, like, for example, the architect, the geotech studies, anything that comes up regarding the on-site project, something they find, okay, how do we adjust this? They're there to help guide all the contractors and everyone else to be able to continue to move the project forward. If that one internal staff member there, they probably don't have the full capacity to understand all of it. Now, if you have a project where you're dropping a couple portables, you might have the internal capacity staff to kind of oversee that project.
And
That's
you
not
don't need to pay
really
a consultant for
all
that.
day, every day. You might not need a construction management company for something like that. So it really depends on the scope of the project.
Correct, and then also, for the bigger projects, it's also the liability. If you have district overseeing projects, it's always the liability. So when you have a construction management firm, for example, this 2-story classroom building at Eisenhower, there were 21 different trades. It's 21 different trades, so, and to manage 21 contractors, it's huge. But yes, like Dr. Alvarez said, for smaller projects, we've had smaller projects where we manage them in-house, like the Healing Garden. We don't have a construction management firm. We've been managing it between George and myself. So the baseball field lighting, we've been managing that ourselves. We don't have a construction management firm.
Thank you for saving the district
So
money.
like smaller projects like that, we won't, I mean, we can do it. But when they're bigger projects, new construction that have so many contractors, so many trades to manage, then that's when the construction management firm comes in place.
I'll give an example. Many years ago, there was a consultant running our Measure Y bond meetings, being paid for that. Something that our staff could do. So it just depends on what the scope of the work is.
Yes. By the way, feel free to tell us that you're going to cover this later on, so, it'll cut down on the time.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Thanks.
So once the construction begins and then the construction is completed, then we go through the closeout process and the final inspection, certification for occupancy, and then once staff moves in, the project is occupied, that we start the warranty period, and then we start the DSA closeout process for certification. School projects have to be closed with DSA, and we have to get certification on that project, that it was built to code, that it was built per plan, and they give us a letter saying, this project was closed with certification, and that's huge, because that will avoid any future problems in the future if we want to build something different on that site. So we definitely need to always have DSA certification. Now I want to just touch a bit on the change order process. I think I know that a lot of the times when we bring change orders forward, there are questions, and so I just kind of want to touch a little bit on how that process. The first thing is when we have the plans that they have been approved by DSA for the most part before construction. If we have a construction management firm, they have reviewed the plans with the architect to make sure that we're ready to start construction. But there's always, or not always, but a lot of times, there are unforeseen conditions or other things that trigger a change order. So when that happens is the issue is identified, and typically, like I said, it's for an unforeseen condition, or it could be for a DSA code change, or it could be for an owner requested change. Sometimes we request changes. When we're in construction, we request changes. So.
Brain damage.
Yeah, design clarification. Sometimes what you draw on paper when you start construction, it's not. So for design clarification, sometimes we have to make changes like that. So once the issue is identified, the contractor submits what we call a change request, or change request, and so it is reviewed by the district, myself, the architect, and if we have a construction management firm, by the construction management firm. So it is, thoroughly reviewed. Why, so yes. We discuss, what the scope is, the cost, any schedule impacts to the project are identified. And so the contractor has to provide a cost breakdown. They definitely have to provide reasoning why. That cost is reviewed by me, it's reviewed by the architect, and if we have a construction management firm, is reviewed by the construction management firm. A lot of the times, we go back to the contractor, a lot of the times, and we say, this does not make sense, you need, change the cost to this, and so we go back and forth and negotiate the cost. So it's not like if I get a change order, I don't just approve it. I review it and I go back and forth with the architect, with the CM, until I feel that, it's a fair pricing, and that in that the change that is being requested, it's valid. It has to be valid, and so we go through that review process. Once I feel comfortable enough, because a lot of the times I reject them. I would I'm not approving this, and I will reject it, and it ends there. But when it is something that's valid, a change that is valid, then we move it forward, and that's when it comes to the board for approval. And then once the board approves it, then it moves forward, and the work gets done. And so that's kind of what the change order process in a nutshell, what it is.
Thank you for verifying them and making sure that it's not being abused for those lowest bidders, and then, trying to up the price by submitting change orders. So thank you for making sure it's legit.
Yeah, we try to do our best, and we have very good architects that are very, very good with reviewing that. And so I also involved our DSA inspector, who we hire, and I always liked him to review the change orders, because sometimes he has very good input as to, well, no, you really don't need that, or you know what, we really need to do this. And so I always involve him. I also like to run it by M&O, because they also, I value their input. So it is vetted before anything comes to you. Just be sure that it's vetted.
M&O.
Maintenance, I'm sorry, maintenance and operations. Sorry, yeah, maintenance
Shout
and
out to
operations.
them.
Mhm, yes. So, all of the change orders that happen through the project, they are logged, and they are tracked. So we always keep track of those change orders, cost impacts and all of that, project delays. So now I want to, like Diane said, just want to go over some of the projects that we completed with the Measure Y. So the stadium and theater at Eisenhower, that was one of the Ronnie Lott Stadium. That was one of the projects that was completed with Measure Y. And so this project included, of course, the ticket booth, bleachers, concession stand, and so, and of course, it included the track and field, the Musco lights, scoreboard. So this was one of the highlights of Eisenhower High School.
I'm just glad babies aren't gonna be able to fall through the bleachers anymore. One year a baby fell through the bleachers.
At
I mean,
Eisenhower?
we needed that stadium needed an upgrade. I mean, those bleachers were there since the, I don't know, 60s or 70s.
What a downer for the show and tell. Continue.
And this project was
Luckily, it wasn't that high up.
this project was completed in April of 2018. And so another highlight project at Eisenhower was the Performing Arts Center. And so this Performing Arts Center, it has a band room, a choir room, dressing rooms, the restrooms, and it has, I think, approximately like 500 seats, if I'm corrected.
And
So-
can you tell them originally what year Eisenhower was built? So,
Oh,
people
my
will get the sense
goodness.
that there's no favoritism.
What year was
the
it?
school was built in 1960.
Was it in
We
the
have some graduates-
60s? Oh, 50s.
1950s.
50s.
So that's why so much of this upgrade is with
Yes.
that particular high school.
Yes.
Because it wasn't.
It was built as a modular school, so it's not even a permanent facility when it was built.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, wow.
And with Measure Y, there was also some upgrades to existing science labs at Eisenhower, Rialto High School, and Culp Middle School. These science labs were completed in November 2013. And then the CTE Engineering Academy at the Chavez Huerta site, this was completed in December 2013 as well. And then the CT Culinary Academy, also at the Chavez Huerta project. I think this is a pretty cool project. It's the way that they do live teaching, that have the cameras that show when they're cooking, and they have the monitors for the students. That's state of the art, pretty cool. And then in December 2015, there were classroom additions to 3 schools. It was Kelly, Cusera Middle School, and Jehu. We removed, at Jehu, we removed portables that were like old portables, like from I think 1999 portables. It was 4 portables, and they were replaced with 2-story classroom buildings, 2 classrooms upstairs, 2 classrooms downstairs. At Casera, also 1998 portables were removed. Again, 4 classrooms, 2 upstairs and 2 downstairs. At Kelly, 1988 portables, were removed. It was 6. So they had 4 kinder classrooms below with the new building and 2 regular grade classrooms upstairs. And then, of course, Eisenhower High School, the 2-story classroom building that we just occupied in August. So That one, we removed 1980, I think they're the portables for 1988 or 89. We removed 32 portables, I believe, and we have 34 new classrooms between the two buildings.
That's at JU?
No, this one is Eisenhower.
Oh,
The new building at Eisenhower.
What year was the classroom additions at Casera and JU again? I'm sorry?
At JU, we removed 4 portables from 1999 and replaced them with 4 new classrooms, which is a 2-story classroom building. Two upstairs and 2 downstairs. At Casera, the same, we removed 4 from 1998, and the same 2 classrooms we replaced it with 2 classrooms upstairs and 2 downstairs for a total of 4. And then at Kelly, we removed 1988 portables. It was 6 portables and 2-story classroom building, 4 kinder classrooms in the bottom floor, and 2 regular classrooms in the second floor.
And all those were done in 2015?
Yes.
Special services, was that not Measure Y, or that's another funding?
No, that was Fund 40? Yeah, that was a different funding.
We were in transition in 2015.
So now I want to talk a little bit about our Measure A projects, which is the bond measure that we passed in 2022. So you want to talk about the proceeds, and then I'll go into.
So the first series that we sold from Measure A was our 2023 series. We issued $80 million. We were able to sell these bonds at a premium of 2.5 million. Our cost of issuance was 972,000. 2.5 of that went into our interest and sinking fund, and the net proceeds available for our projects were 79 million. We, at a later slide, we're going to talk about how we time when we sell our bonds, because there's 2 factors. It's the ability to sell the bonds, and it's also the ability to complete the projects. The district cannot issue bond funds if they're just going to have them sit and not initiate the projects within 5 years. And so we'll get there. We'll get there.
I'm sorry, what did you say the net other uses is?
That's just the combination of the cost of issuance. So if you see the 2 lines above it, the 972,000 plus the 2.5 million that gets deposited to the interest and sinking fund for debt payment, the aggregate of those 2 equals the total net other uses of 3.5.
Thank you.
So far for this bond measure, we have the $79 million that was from the bond sale. We've earned 6.9 million in interest, and we were able to get a $20,000 rebate. So in the aggregate, we've had $86 million worth of revenue come in, and where it's allocated to be used is for the renovation of our elementary kitchens. The balance of the Eisenhower 2-story classrooms, 2 new gyms at Kolb and Frisbee, and then the Trap TK Kinder classroom building.
So it's very important for us to get interest, because you said 5 years, just the initiation of the project. So the cost of materials will always rise. So that's where the bond sort of leverage.
Absolutely. When Angie and her team work on cost of projects, we always have a price escalation factor. Because the process is so long, that's built into the projections. Because there's unknowns to the project, we also build that into the projection. And if we do have savings, or that budget doesn't 100% come to fruition, we just reallocate it to a different project. There is administrative costs that come with the bond. And so if you see line number 1, every bond measure does require its own independent audit. And we may have other consultants that are hired For this particular bond measure, it really is just the audit right now.
Speaking on the audit, on the Measure Y financial audit for June the 30th, 2024, just want to go over on page 11, what is the report on the internal control over financing? That was one of the statements. And, you know, I just want us to be transparent. So what is our process for the internal control over that? That was sort of stated.
There's two aspects to the audit. One of them looks at compliance with the bond measure language, which is the performance audit. Are we spending the money in the way that we said we would spend it? And then there's a second component, which is the financial audit. Are the numbers represented in a manner that is accurate and truthful? And so part of our audit, both for the bond and the district, they look at our internal controls. What are all those safety measures and processes, policies, procedures that we have in place to ensure that finances are reported accurately and transacted in a ethical manner? So they look at, you know, do we follow the bidding process? Do we follow our governmental accounting standard board regulations? They look at all of those requirements and they offer an opinion in each of the reports. Our district has not had any internal control findings for the bond audits. And so that is reassurance that we are following good practices.
Great, great. And do we have it for the other process?
Yes.
Have we worked on that?
For the district, we haven't had any financial internal control findings. The last 2 years, we've had findings in relation to our federal programs. And so that's more of compliance.
Thank you.
One thing I wanted the board to know is that because of the federal shutdown that occurred in the fall, our auditors were unable to receive their guidance from their agencies to conduct our audit, which is why you still have not been presented with the audit report for January. The county has given us an extension, and so we anticipate them completing their audit before the end of February and being able to present that to you. That includes the bond audit as well.
Thank you.
So with Measure A, we have some exciting projects that are in planning stage currently. So for Kolb and Frisbee, we have 2 new gymnasiums with, and also a synthetic track for both of those schools. These gyms have just been approved by DSA in December. So we have DSA approval. We are anticipating possibly a groundbreaking in June of this year, 2026. So in the summer to start with the construction of these 2 gymnasiums.
Where will it be located?
So at Kolb, it's going to be in the field, close to where the PE area. So it's going to be located out in the field. And then at Frisbee, it's going to be located where the basketball courts are now. Those are going to be relocated to the upper field.
Is the track will still be there?
The track will still be there. It's just going to be synthetic.
Lighting? Oh,
4 little rocks.
Yeah, it's going to be synthetic.
will we mark 1 mile?
Yes.
I'll tell the ladies.
We'll be happy.
Absolutely.
And then other upcoming projects, and I apologize for not having renderings, but they're still in the early phase of design, so we don't have renderings. But we have at Trapp Elementary, we are planning to build a 4 kindergarten classroom building. And so one of them is going to be for one of the classrooms is going to be for kinder special ed. So we're working on that. We with the architect right now. We're going through all the testing, the ground testing, underground utility identification, all of that. So to make sure that in the area that we are planning to build this, that is going to be feasible. So, and then We also just got DSA approval on 3 of the elementary kitchen modernization projects. So we just received approval for Henry, Preston, and Boyd. So those 3 we have DSA. So the 2 that are still in DSA that are a little bit more complex. So DSA has been we've been going back and forth with DSA with changes and things like that. Are Morgan and Casey.
Yeah, Casey's.
Yes. So we are in the process of working through those changes for Casey and Morgan, and I anticipate DSA will be approving those possibly by April.
What are you going to do at Casey again?
The kitchen. We're
But
going
no
to
classrooms?
no, just the kitchen for now.
Can I ask what happens in the elementary kitchens? Like, do we make the food at the central kitchen or order it and then it just gets distributed in health there, or do they actually cook something at in these kitchens?
The process is that the food is prepared at the central kitchen, and then it's taken to the school sites and it's warmed and served there.
And the year they were built and the capacity, because with the kitchen you get more bathrooms, they use their cafeteria as their multi-purpose rooms. And they're like it's like 1 small bathroom in there, if any. And then it's not even special needs requirements. They're so old. What year was that, Casey?
Yeah, some of the schools are very
This,
old.
I think it was in the in the
It was
60s for
elementary
Casey.
school in Rialto School District, so that
So
was the oldest.
the elementary use their cafeteria kitchen way more than most of the other ones, because they have.
Dr. Alvarez, all this information, could you put something together and post it on the website so the public can view it without trying to find the right spot in the YouTube?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, we will.
Thank you very much.
What do we have? Like, Ask Our USD, what is it called? And it'll just pop up now?
Show and tell.
Yes.
Show and tell. Measure wide.
This is all great
wanna talk about that?
information.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So when we sold the first series, our financial planners look at the ability of the community to sustain the debt, right? So the way that I understand it is they look at what is the projected value of homes in Rialto if we have a cap of $60 per $100,000. Where are we at with paying off our prior debt, and how much more debt can we issue? And so the schedule that you see in your presentation is the schedule they had given us in 2025 as to when they predicted we would be selling the next series of bonds. We're a little beyond their schedule, which is why we anticipate being able to sell another 80 million, hopefully this spring or in the summertime, so that we can continue moving forward with other projects that we have planned. At the time, they predicted 60 million, but because we are further along and the assumption is that some of that debt has been paid off, we should be able to sell. Home values in Rialto continue to increase and I think outpace the very conservative assumptions that were built in for these projections. And so we should have that ability. As we get closer to that point, we'll definitely be bringing more information to the board as to what that means and what the timeline looks like. Angie's going to go over some of those projects that we would like to present the board with that we have identified right now.
Bond-wise, I think there is a dip in the market, bonds go up, so, I know you pay attention to that. If we could just look historically what the stock market, bond market does, and then try and follow that trend.
Absolutely. We have a really good team that we work with. Last time when we sold the first series, we were under a certain schedule. They anticipated that the bond was not going to have the demand that they expected on that day. We delayed it 2 weeks, and then we ended up selling at a premium. And so we will continue to work with that team because they have been very helpful to the district. And of course, like we want to make sure that the investment from our taxpayers is not only producing the projects that we want, but we're also using their funds wisely. And so, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
So the board approves the bond underwriters, right?
They did.
Are you guys covering any of that in your presentation? And then the bidding process for those? Or not this time around?
We're not covering that this time. When we are ready for the sale of the next series, we can come to the board and we can give a presentation on what you're approving and how those individuals were selected. There is an informal request for proposals that is followed. They're not required to bidding, but there is still a procurement process that we follow because we want to make sure that the prices are reasonable and that there's value to their service. Something that Angie's not going to tell you is that Angie is a great haggler. Like, she is not afraid to stand up to anybody. And so between both of us, we have these conversations about, we understand that you're here to serve us, but you're going to be here to serve us at a reasonable price, right? And sometimes that goes well and sometimes it doesn't. It does turn people away, but you know that the individuals that you work with are committed to serving students. We're going to pay you what's fair, but you're not going to take advantage of the district, because when you do, that means that we have, we have less dollars for the students.
I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Angie.
Thank you. Now I see why Mr. Montez always sings your praises.
So, like Diane mentioned, some of the projects that we are talking about and discussing and looking at right now, the district has many needs, but some of the projects that we are looking at right now for the next bond series is the replacement of the older portables. We have some portables that are like 30, 40 years old in some of our schools. So we have been assessing some of those, and at BMIS, we identified 9. Casey, Dr. Lewis, at Casey we identified 11. Dunn, another 11, and then Morgan, 7 that are, like I said, 30 to 40 years old. So we definitely want to replace those and replace them with permanent classroom buildings. So that's something that we are looking at.
I had a question. So when these portables were placed, did they just assume that like ADA was going to go up just temporarily and then back down, and the plan was like to get rid of them, or it was always just waiting for an opportunity to have the funds to replace them?
You want to answer that? Okay.
I think if you look at the age of our portables, they're all from the late 80s, early 90s, when the Inland Empire was growing at such a rapid pace that portables was the solution. From the anecdotes that I hear, like our maintenance and operations staff would install these portables. They were a semi-permanent solution because unless the district or the state provided the funds, they didn't have an alternative. And I think it's beyond the capacity of our bonding ability. And so we did the best that we could. Independent of what gets replaced with the bond, we will still have many portables. Something that we have started is refurbishing what we do have, because we know that we won't be able to replace all of them. But we can, resurface them. We can replace their ramps, the flooring, the roofing. And so we do have a very skillful maintenance and operations department. And so the reason that these schools were selected is because we know that they're going to maintain their enrollment. And so for schools where we're unsure of their enrollment, or maybe their enrollment is not meeting their capacity, we're going to refurbish those facilities, but they're not going to be replaced at the time.
And the bottom line is the buildings don't teach the kids, the teachers teach the kids.
Correct.
So whether their kids are learning in a portable, a good, refurbished, rebuilt portable, or a permanent classroom structure, at the end of the day, it's the teachers who teach them, not the buildings.
Well, I would like to say that environment and its studies have shown that when kids are in a conducive environment, going to LA counties and part of my outside of this job work is our facilities in our schools in Rialto Unified School District looks good. When you go to some of the LA counties, our space, so we are doing very well in maintaining, and it's nice to see that we have a system of upgrading. Because back in the 60s and 70s, that's when the explosion everywhere, and to replace that intentionally. But, the teachers have to be in there, they were doing a lot of types of, Fleetwood, and the constructions of those are deteriorating no matter how you maintain it. It's just the nature of the construction at that time. So I'm glad we have our bonds in our community to support for us to systematically replace
And we have to
and get that.
justify growth, all those homes that
Yes.
the develop right here along the.
Well, what are
the
they?
old
By
country club,
Casey,
they
my
did-
Stater
They
brother.
did build them, so.
Yeah.
I'm loud enough, I'm good. So those homes are built, I have family that bought a house over there, so we have the growth. I see your guys' concern, we don't wanna replace them all, because what if ADA goes down?
We still have
But-
to upgrade. Yeah,
Yeah.
not replace, but we're all constantly upgrading. Because asbesto and all that stuff, when the years those were bought, wasn't issues.
Well, you guys are on it, thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give an example of why sometimes school districts end up with a lot of portables, and this goes back to when I was hired anyone in 30 years in the district back in 96, something came into effect called class size reduction, 20-1. It quickly got implemented. You had to get all your kindergarten to third grade classrooms an average of 20-1 from going from 30, 35. So that means you had to hire a lot of additional teachers, but you didn't have all the rooms for them because you're splitting every 2 classrooms, now needing 3, from 2 teachers to 3 teachers, however. And so the solution was portable. So they were dropping portables constantly and running. And so these portables, 30 years in, were not meant to be a permanent solution, but because the state didn't provide funding to actually building support this, the funds that were given were limited and could only afford portables at that time, which is why we're talking about here today, how we really need to replace those with
Modulars.
permanent
Wait,
modular
modulars.
buildings. Permanent modular buildings.
Modulars. Thank you.
And just other projects that we're looking at are to update our security systems at various school sites. That's something that we're looking at. Updating the sports facilities with scoreboards, at the new bleachers at Rialto High School. So those are other projects that we are looking into. And then, of course, also updating our air conditioning systems at some of our sites. So those are some of the projects that we are talking about. We are in the early stages of discussing and looking at, if we sell the bonds, those are some of the projects that we are going to be looking to move forward with. And then just before I close with my presentation, I just wanted to share pictures of some of the other projects that they are not bond projects, but they're projects that we are working on. The International Healing Garden. This project, I know it's been a long time in in construction, but we finally got Southern California Edison to energize it on December 21st. So we have power, yay. So now we are finalizing the components inside the building that required us to have power, like the fire alarm systems, the air conditioning systems. So we are finalizing that. We anticipate this project to be completed by March. We have our punch walk on February 2nd. So we are very close.
What was the solution to the windows? Remember
So-
you kept breaking them and you were going to...
So what we did, we stopped replacing them and we just boarded them up. So once everything is completed inside and we're ready to, that's going to be the last thing that's going to be replaced.
So you're still going to use glass, not a different type? Oh.
Yeah, it's still going to be glass. Yeah.
But the reason why it's being vandalized is because it's not finished and it's vacant and it's not enclosed. Once it's finalized, vandalizers will not be as easily able to access, to go and throw rocks at the windows or try to steal stuff from there.
Well, that little wind tunnel where it's located.
How do you know these things?
Okay.
But we
I
have
live here.
identified it's like a shatterproof polymer.
Yes.
And so we're not going to replace it with the type of glass that it had before. These are the windows that face the sidewalk. And so those will still be exposed, but we're hoping with this type of material, it'll be stronger.
Well, it's
They'll tag
winds,
on.
winds are bad too, you know, that's the wind tunnel
Oh, absolutely.
there.
Please continue.
And then, of course, our new central kitchen, which is in the planning stage right now, and this is just a rendering. We are still working with the architect and the nutrition services staff to finalize the renderings and the floor plan. But this is one of the renderings that the architect showed us, and the staff liked it, and so this is kind of. But like I said,
Wow.
it's still going to, yeah.
Is this still gonna have like the event space on top?
It does have conference rooms on top, yes.
Are we still limited to 750?
I'm sorry.
The event space, are we limited to seating of 750?
I have to go back and look. I know we had to make some adjustments, so I can't remember the exact, but I can get you that information.
And then, this is still planned to be built at the property that the district purchased on
Yes,
Foothill between Lilac and, was it, what, Lilac and Cactus?
And CAC, yes,
Cactus.
yes, on Foothill, yes.
Across from Carl's Jr.,
Yes,
currently being used as a dirt road track.
yes.
Next to the car wash.
Yes, on top of it.
And then the baseball
Mrs.
field
Lopez?
lighting projects at
Mrs.
Eisenhower
Lopez, sorry,
and
there was-
Rialto. Oh, I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
there was a question.
Oh, sorry.
I was
didn't
just,
hear.
when she said event space, she said, does it still have an event space? So I was just asking, do we currently have it? Or you just meant part of the original drawings had an event space and we were gonna keep
It's
that?
it's a conference. It's a conference room. It's a big conference room on the second floor that can accommodate larger events.
And when are we looking for this?
So we are currently in the planning stage. We still, this project is probably not going to, I mean, if I have to give you a date, probably 2020, we might start construction in 2028.
I think, some of the plans, ideas of the district board and leadership at the time was to take advantage of the new construction and provide a site for the district and the community to be able to use for banquet, award dinners and,
Yeah.
other types of functions as opposed to having to go out of the
To
city.
see your lakes,
to
we've been
Cedar
playing a
Lake
lot.
Or, Rancho Cucamonga
Yeah.
or,
Keep it
Disneyland,
local.
the Disneyland Hotel or wherever, we could host our own events and then open it up to the community to even rent it out and generate revenue for the district.
Yeah, save money, make money, and keep it local.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that'll be
That's the
nice,
concept.
and then let it
Community
be
needs
above
that space.
all of the needs for the central kitchen at the bottom, so it's not in the way,
And we're still keeping
birds
our
with one
other
stone.
kitchen too, so we're just
Correct.
having that
Yes.
sort of support. So that was just sort of upgrade for storage.
And Mrs. Lopez, just, I think it's important to clarify, how is this being paid for?
It was another.
Diane, the funding source for the central kitchen?
Well, most of it's gonna be paid for, from what I understood, the nutrition services department themselves.
No, it's
it's
being
another
paid with a COPS, with
Certificates of
a
participation?
yes.
The student nutrition fund could pay for the
For
equipment and
equipment,
materials within
not
the
the
building
construction.
itself, but not the actual
not-
physical
Oh.
construction.
So all the new
Yes.
kitchen equipment,
Yes.
refrigerators, stoves and all of that.
All that could be paid out of the student nutrition fund, correct?
Yes, correct.
When I'm correct, we leased the land from Carter or something like that to go into this project. Diane, you want to clarify that? Remember when they presented, and it was a different sort of advisory?
Right, when
Before
we,
the board asks any further questions, how are we doing on time?
It's barely 10:30, Mr. Martinez. I think we have till 1 o'clock.
Well, I'm
But we
hoping they've
don't
got
have
a
to
lot
go
more
till
info.
one. That's what he's saying.
Exactly. Please, don't drag it out till 1.
when we issue debt from the district that is non-voter approved, so it's not going to go to the community for a vote, we have to identify collateral. And so we did identify Carter as the site that is supporting the financing mechanism. Just for clarity, The original intent was for this facility to be 3 stories, have an event center at the 3rd story, but then budget realities kicked in hard. And so what we're gonna have is we're gonna have the operation on the 1st floor. We're gonna have the administration offices on the 2nd story. And then there is a very large conference room that's gonna serve both as a conference room and as a training facility with the live kitchen. And so, we will still be able to hold a large training or large event, but nothing like we had originally envisioned. We thought that people would be willing to donate or contribute or partner, and that's not a reality. And so,
Never say never.
It-
It's too late.
if you are a millionaire, billionaire out there and wants to contribute, it's not late. We're still in the design process.
DSA out.
I think we need a meter.
But
Talk to the city.
as it sits now, it is going to be a facility that is state of the art. It's going to help them continue to innovate and create. And we still do have the cafe on the 1st floor that is going to be facing Foothill so that the community can resume eating, at our cafe. The conference room is reconfigurable so that if you want to host smaller sessions, you can. If you want to open up the walls, then you can have a large session. And so it's going to be a really nice facility, and it's going to, I think, be like a really nice point of reference for the school district. And like Dr. Alvarez said, we are really working with the state to leverage how much can be charged to the program versus how much has to go to construction. That way, it gives us more funding so that we can create something really nice.
Okay, was this kitchen more of a need or a desire for the district?
Have you taken a tour of the central kitchen?
I have not. I would love to.
If you do, it's a need.
Our
Well,
central-
Okay, I just
What they do.
We are one of the ones who are doing scratch cooking, innovation, and one of the desire of the intent is a lot of other districts are doing heat and serve, and we could also contract with them to do some of the scratch cooking and to work with vendors. So it was mixed with flexibility of how it was going to be utilized.
The current central kitchen, I believe, was built in the 80s. And so the pipelines, the electrical lines, the suppression systems, all of the systems themselves are beyond their capacity. And when we, Angie earlier spoke about a feasibility study. When they conducted a feasibility study of what it would take to update the facility, it outweighed the cost, and it wouldn't give us any more square footage. If you have ever been in the central kitchen when it is either the I know it's not called the dismissal, but basically when they send out the food or when it comes back in, it is
hot.
orchestrated magic because it is so tight that we really dodge bullets. They need space. And so when we looked at what our possibilities were, the best option was to just start from scratch and build from the ground up.
And the safety for OSHA.
Absolutely.
And now you have to have the requirement for food allergens. They have to be totally separate. And, they just really didn't have the space to do that.
And then half the time, some of the equipment is down.
Can I rein us in? Please proceed. Please
And
monitor yourselves, board.
and then
Yes, to ask questions too.
Not specifically to get the information out to the public.
Well, it's supposed to be a time where we can ask all the questions
Miss-
outside of the.
Mr. Martinez, we hear you loud and clear. We will limit our questions.
Thank you, sir.
Just make sure we all do it.
we also have the new baseball field lighting at Eisenhower High School and Rialto High School. Rialto High School, we have completed that project. It's completed. Right now, we're only cleaning up the field and making it look nice because, of course, during construction, there was some damage to the grass and things like that. So we're working on that. But the lights are up. They're working. So that one is complete. Eisenhower, we are having some delays there Southern California Edison identified that the switchgear and it's not capable of holding the new lights. So the switchgear and we have to add a transformer have to be upgraded. So right now the plans are with Southern California Edison. When I last spoke with them last week, they said that they have the plans, they are reviewing them. They anticipate the review process is going to be 6 to 8 weeks. So we have a little bit of a delay there because of Southern California Edison being involved with the upgrading of the switchgear and the transformer. So, but
Last transformer at the beginning delayed us 6 months.
So 68 weeks from that.
Plan on 6 months.
so I have I think with the International Healing Garden, I have made some friends over there. So I think I can. I'm getting better responses now than I did when we endured the Healing Garden. But
Good job, Angie.
and then the theater seats at Rialto High School, they were replaced. They look very, very nice if you have an opportunity to go. And I mean, they look very, very nice.
I can see
So,
that.
It's like a whole brand new theater.
yes,
Yeah.
it looks beautiful.
I sat in one of those chairs, like right next to one of those chairs that was like, I was like, what happened to this chair? So that's awesome.
Yeah, so they
I'm
look-
excited for them.
And with that, that's my presentation. If you have any questions, anything else that you need me to clarify for you, I'd be more than happy.
Now, board, have at it.
Well, Mrs. Lopez, for you being a Department of 4,
See?
you are a mighty department, and I am appreciative of your haggling skills and making friends at Edison, and I appreciate all you do for our facilities. Please continue the hard work and
Thank you.
making our schools look great, and continue with your mighty department.
Thank you, thank you. I love what I do.
Thank
I
you.
love-
I can tell.
I love what I do. I've been doing this for almost, oh my God, I started in 1996. So I've been,
Oh my gosh, you're on the anniversary.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the anniversary year
so-
for you.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation.
you.
It was very well put together and very informative. And we appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing. Keep up the good work, you and all of your team. And we look forward to you guys working with the leadership of Dr. Alvarez. He does bring a wealth of experience in these areas with him, so I'm sure that'll be a breath of fresh air to you guys as well. So thank you.
Looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for. I'm so excited.
Dr. Alvarez, we still have more to go. Should we have a break, a 5-minute break? Come back at,
10 minutes, okay? 10 minutes, okay? I didn't get a sandwich.
and I'm halfway through mine over there. Yeah, 10:45.
we're on the lease, right?
Yeah.
We're on the lease.
Okay. Well, welcome back. Our short break is done, and here we go. Ladies?
So our presentation, our next presentation is going to be a continuation of the prior workshop that we held. But with me today, I'm going to have Nicole Biso, our Executive Director of Fiscal Services, go through some of the data as well. So if we will go ahead and get started. I gave you a couple of handouts because I figured it might be easier as we go through the presentation. Last time when I did an overview of our interim reports, which report on our budget and the current status, we spoke that the most important document is your multi-year projection. And so in your packet, you have a report that looks like this. Just in case that you want to reference, this was our multi-year projection form from our first interim report. The data that you're going to be presented with today is current data live from our system. And well, if you see any differences, it's because the budget is a live document and we update it as information is obtained and received. In your packet, you also will have,
I'm sorry, which one, you said, which ones are the current one?
the current ones are going to be the exhibits in your presentation.
Okay, I'm sorry, we
Okay.
had two things.
So this one is your first, your multi-year projection from the first interim report. You're going to have exhibits in the presentation that might be slightly different, and that's because we've updated data. You also have copies of all of our salary schedules, and I will explain when we get to those slides why you have them. So again, we, as a public entity, we have a responsibility of fiscal solvency, and so last time we explained to the board, as a board, when you're reviewing our financials, what is the most important thing that you should be looking at if you cannot look at anything else? And that's our multi-year projection, because we want to make sure that we're able to sustain the level of service to our students and meet our financial obligations. And in addition, we are required by state law to meet our 3% reserves. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So in thinking about how do we help our community and our board understand more about our budget? So today we're going to give you way more details than you probably want to know, but are important so that the community understands that there is a lot of data and information that is behind our numbers. Numbers are not static. They're
Fluctuate.
they fluctuate and they adapt to the current circumstance and the information available. And so we're going to go ahead and start with the largest portion of our budget, which is our salaries. If you recall, last time we had this slide and we spoke about in the unrestricted general fund, which is where our base program and our supplemental concentration funds live, 75% of our expense is people. If we look at both unrestricted and restricted sources, that percentage is closer to 85%. So it's important for us to understand what makes up the largest portion of our budget, what do we have control over, and what don't. So as we make decisions, we understand what we have to keep, what we can modify, what we can reduce. In a school district, all employees fall either into one of two classifications. Our certificated staff are employees that have a credential or a permit that's issued by the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. So this group of individuals referred to as certificated are our teachers, our school administrators, our counselors, our school psychologists, our speech language pathologists, our nurses, some of our instructional coaches or specialists, our librarians. And we may have other very specialized credential holders, but this group in the aggregate we refer to are certificated. Our classified positions are positions that do not require a credential from the CTC and typically support school operations. So it's our mental health professionals, our finance professionals, our human resource professionals, our office support, our instructional aides, our custodians, food service workers, bus drivers, maintenance, and other specialty technicians or tradesmen. It is not to say that this group does not hold licenses or other types of credentials, because each profession comes with its own set of degrees and credentials. But within our system, this is the two groups that we identify as. You're either in certificated or in classified. And so when it comes to our payroll expenses, everything is traced through certificated and classified.
Excuse me, for the public, could you touch on the SACs? Explain where all this framework comes
Yes.
from for the public.
So if I can go on to the next slide, I'll start with that. If we can go back to what we mentioned at the last meeting, as a school district, we are required to follow the state's required standardized account code structure. They prescribe how we keep our accounting of both our revenue and our expenses. And so that structure created by the state for our books also specifies how do we identify certificated members, classified members. So if you look at our first exhibit here, which is a summary of all of our certificated cost, on the left-hand side, you see a number that starts with a 1. In our SACS account code string, a 1 signifies a certificated member. And so because the school district has so much compliance and reporting, this standardized account code use helps not only the district, but the state level administrators identify and trace costs. And so 1,000s is your certificated individuals, 2,000s are classified employees, the 3,000s are all of our health and welfare and statutory benefit cost. The 4,000s represent our supplies and materials. 5,000s represent services. 6,000s is capital expenses. Yes.
Thank you for finally giving us a cheat sheet. So now we can, so now we know what we're looking at.
You're welcome.
That would be very helpful to have these codes broken down like that. So
We'll definitely work with Dr. Alvarez to get you our chart of accounts.
Yeah, that-
The account code structure has 26 digits. And to those of us who work in it, it is like a second alphabet.
for us, it's just numbers in there.
yes,
But not
I
for us
totally
to know what
understand.
we're looking
It's a
at.
lot of.
I understand. I feel the same way when I hear people speak in acronyms. And it's like, okay, you understand, but I don't understand. But it does help us, like we can tell how an expense is used based on the account code. And so if we get into our 1,000s, which is our certificated expenses, you'll notice that some of these numbers end in a 10. That 10, 11, 10, 12, 10, 13, 10, 14, or 13, 10, 19, 10, there's no 14, 10. That signifies that this is the cost associated with a contract. So this is the contract cost for our teachers under 1110. 1210 is our pupil support, which is our counseling staff, our librarians, anyone who is identified as pupil support outside of the classroom. Our 1310 is our certificated administrative salaries. And then 1910 is all other support. So this might be coaches, our BITSA induction staff that is supporting the classroom. So if you look at this, we're looking at unrestricted. We're focusing in on unrestricted because this is where the district has more discretion in how to use the funds. So any adjustments that we make within this category depending on what is generating the increase or decrease, if it's completely out of base, we can reallocate. If it's coming out of supplemental concentration, we identify another area in which we can support supplemental concentration activities. In this category, we have $120 million of ongoing costs. Why I wanted to touch on this, or why I'm bringing these exhibits, is to just give you a little insight into what makes up our numbers. So again, all of the 10s are positions. When our employees are hired and they're hired into a classification, they sign an offer letter that brings them into contract with the district, right? Those contracts directly correlate their compensation to a bargaining agreement that we have agreed to between our labor representatives and the district. And so we are bound by these rules and these agreements as to how we're going to compensate you and under what circumstances. So that 1110 comes with a salary schedule that says, if you come in with these qualifications, we're going to provide you with this salary. The same goes with our classified members. But then there are these other lines, right, beyond their salary that we pay for that are also guided by our agreements. Like I mentioned last time, school district business is extremely complicated because we are here to safeguard students, we're here to instruct them, we're here to provide for their medical needs during the day. And so if we can just kind of go down the list, anytime that we ask our teachers to perform a duty that's outside of their professional, their agreed upon job description and their professional duty within that job description, we have an obligation to pay them, right? So if I am a science teacher and you want me to offer maybe a enrichment opportunity for my students after hours, you have to pay me to do that. And so if you look at our lines up there, if that teacher is asked to do it during their calendar, so within the school calendar, we trace that under an 1130, which is teacher on calendar extra duty. And you can see for this year, we have $1.4 million budgeted for those opportunities. This can be enrichment, this can be professional development, this can be summer school. Any activity that we have identified that we need teacher support outside of their primary obligation. When teachers are asked to come at times when they're off calendar, we also have to track this separately. And so that's that line item, 1120, teacher off calendar extra duty for $837,000.
So that could be like weekends or field
Yeah,
trips.
weekends or-
This is primarily summer school. Summer school, extended school year, things of that nature. At times, we will ask our teachers to come during their summers for curriculum development. Maybe
Training.
sometimes schools will sacrifice coming back early to get ahead of training. And so it's always tied back to an activity that the district has a need for. Because, again, students don't come and go in neat little packages, right? We do our staffing, and then we realize that maybe instead of 10 English sections, now I need 11. I may go to a teacher and ask them, hey, are you willing to give up your prep time and teach an extra section? And when that happens, we have an obligation to pay them. So that is your 1139 teacher 1/6 period extra pay. When we have staff that, has emergencies or for whatever reason, they're entitled to take their time off, and we have to provide a substitute, that's an 1140. And so, as you can see, we have $2.6 million budgeted for substitute cost. And then, again, the district has a need to ask the teacher to perform a duty outside their primary role. Say that you need a department level lead. We're going to ask you to take on this responsibility, but we're going to have a stipend that comes with that responsibility. And so every action has a corresponding budget implication and account code through which we trace these things. We as a district have an obligation to compensate our employees as agreed upon in that bargaining agreement. And so when we when we look at how do we adjust our budget, we look at all of these things and we identify what is feasible, right? What is discretionary? What's in direct support of a student need? Or is it already required? Is it a base program type of support? And so there's a lot of repetition in the way that we do accounting, and so we follow that same structure for every identified group of employees. I think it's important to understand that every decision that we make that ties to primary compensation from the contract has an implication on all the extra duty type compensation, because there's a tie to the base compensation. So if we increase base salary, the cost of everything else will also be adjusted.
So, so all these different extra duties and things, they have been negotiated and we have complied, right? These have been built by teachers and union negotiating this, which is, I should have gotten to teaching. But this is through the hard work of going back and forth and negotiating, right? And so at this district, Rialto Unified School District, it's not one class get a raise and another class do not. So like when raises or promotion comes, like in the hospital, nurses get it, it doesn't mean physicians get it. But here, if whatever group gets it, everyone gets it, whether you're a teacher, a classified, administrator, and then all these rates are adjusted, or am I incorrect with that?
So our district is unique in that now we have three unions. Our Rialto Education Association represents our certificated staff. CSCA represents our classified staff. And now we have the Teamsters that are representing some of our therapists and our psychologists. And so we currently have language in our CSCA agreement that if our certificated REA union receives a raise, they will at a minimum receive the same level of compensation. Management does not automatically get a raise. That takes board action for us to get a raise. And Teamsters is still building their language, and so we don't have a response for them yet. But if you are within the union unit, yes, you will get a raise if your union has negotiated a raise for your unit.
So everyone will get
What
it.
about Rialto
Yes.
School Managers Association?
They are not a union.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Me Too.
They're more of a support group, yeah.
Okay, so Me Too is mainly everyone except for management?
Me Too is language in the CSCA contract for CSCA members.
Just to clarify, some of these dollar amounts, some of them are tied to individual salaries. Like if you look at 1.6, they're usually tied to the hourly rate of that individual teacher. So obviously an increase would change the dollar amount for that 1.6. A lot of the extra duties are already predetermined at a set dollar amount. That a raise may not impact that set dollar amount for some extra duty because it's already in the contract what that dollar amount is per hour.
So
if I can
schools
refer
are
you to your exhibit.
nonprofit, right? Schools are nonprofit, but we're not trying to hoard or save money, but we have to have a reserve for all the things that we have contractually agreed to.
Right, so because of the processes we have in place, we have to meet that 3% reserve, right? Because of some of the labor laws and education code in California, our members are entitled to their positions unless we go through a layoff process. And so there is, the district has a huge obligation to be able to meet those contracts that we have with each individual employee. I did include for you the extra duty compensation schedule for certificated. In our district, we have a combination of both stipends that are a set dollar amount and we also have stipends that are a percentage of our salary schedule.
So if we were to increase the base salary, let's say we increase the base salary by 3%, everything else on this, unrestricted expenditures go up by 3%, including the set dollar amounts, or how does the
Only
increases
the,
works?
only the ones that are tied to, the salary schedule would receive an increase.
Okay,
Because, so in our district, we have an index base, and that's just like a reference point on the teacher salary schedule. And when the salary schedule gets updated, so that starting point gets updated, so does everything that uses that particular placement.
okay,
If, say that we have like a $1,500 set stipend for the, I don't know, the science lead. The union would propose to us, we would like to see an adjustment of such and such, because that one's not tied to the salary schedule.
so then they would propose a number and we accept or deny.
And the district has as well, like if we see that it's really hard, because it is hard to recruit science teachers,
Correct.
we might say, we're gonna try a recruitment stipend for, AP physics teachers, and we're gonna set it at this amount to see if we're more effective in recruiting them or keeping them too.
Okay.
Give me 1 second, this cable got pushed off, so he's gonna fix the cable. They can see it in the metal world.
Which way do you? So if we want to move on to the next slide and take a look at classified. I structured classified a little different because classified encompasses such a diverse group of individuals. And so if we can just kind of go down the categories to give the community an opportunity to understand the type of professionals that we hire.
Not only the most diverse, but just the most populous in general.
Yes, yes. So under support services, we have instructional aides of all sorts. Instructional aides that are in general education. We have instructional aides that come into dual language immersion classrooms. We have instructional aides that come into our English learner, support. We have instructional aides that come into our special needs classrooms with students that may not have severe needs. And so that's what that first line represents. So in their contract salaries, we spend about $6.5 million. We spend $56,000 on off-calendar duty. That's most likely ESY. You notice that their on-calendar extra duty is low. The reason for that is because we have, post-COVID, increased their contracted number of hours. The majority of our aides are 6, 7, 8 hours. So if you consider that our school day is between 6.5 hours, there's not a lot of time where these individuals can earn extra duty. However, you do see overtime. Overtime comes into play when they maybe go on a field trip. If we have a student that needs the aide to come on the bus with them on their way in and back home. And so depending on the circumstances, what's giving rise to that expense. And then of course we have our substitute expense, and then we have a vacation payout. So again, those are items that are guided by our union agreements. If you are an employee that is less than 12 months, meaning that you work less than a 12-month calendar, the district identifies when you're going to take your vacation. And so we're able to plot all of those days. Well, in our district, as you commit with the district and you have more years of service, you accrue vacation at a higher rate. So you may be in a circumstance where there's not enough available non-student days for you to take your vacation days. And so instead of having the students maybe with a sub or go without, we have the vacation payout at the end of the year as a dual purpose way to have you there when students are there, but not have you miss out on the compensation that you're entitled to. So same format with each of these groups. I'm not gonna go through them. The next group is attendance and social workers. That's pretty self-explanatory. Curriculum development. I'm gonna call Nicole up here because some of these I don't know off the top of my head. Come here. Curriculum development would be some of the clerical support staff to our ed services that are directly supporting the individual that maybe is working on math curriculum, science curriculum, all of the major areas. The guidance and counseling staff, this is your
High school counselors.
career center, some of your mental health individuals at the middle schools, things of that nature. Health services is our health aides, health clerks. Information technology is our IT department. Instruction. Go ahead.
Good morning, Board. Nicole Albiso, Executive Director. So the instructional staff, that is going to be people who are working at the school sites in the classroom, but also in a classified manner. So it could be no, not the instructional aides are actually, yes, it does include. Thank you, Christine. So it includes the instructional aides. It could also include the aides that are in the TK classes, the kinder classes. Diane mentioned earlier that we have aides that are not necessarily in special ed classes, but they're in to support other classes. So that's going to be this group. Do you want to keep going? Okay.
Yes.
So under the IT, you said which?
So the information technology line, that is actually our centralized information technology team. If you look at the instructional media library technology line, that represents our library techs and instructional technology assistants at the school sites.
Where is our very important communications department?
Communications is probably lumped into the other, into that support services, other?
Other people or other instructional resources?
No, just the support services.
Support services at the
Yeah.
very top. The first
The one that I wanted to highlight for you, because I think it can
No, she
possibly
said just
be
the other.
misleading, is school administration is the classified staff that supports school administration. So your project clerk, your school secretary, your health clerk in the nurse's office, anyone of clerical nature at the school site. So again, when we're talking about like how do we make these adjustments, right? Like how do we analyze the cost and the position or the overtime, the extra duty? It goes back to what is giving rise to that extra cost. Is it because my support staff in the warehouse is here on a weekend for 12 hours for an event? Or is it that a student wanted to go on a field trip, and so in order for them to attend, we had to send an aide with them, and now it's going to generate, overtime? Or is it, like there's always something, and so we really have to look at the context of what's driving the cost.
Romo?
Yes,
I'm sorry, could Ms. Biso go back to the microphone for a second?
yes.
Just for clarification, I only see two others on the list.
Yes.
Other instructional resources and then other people services. Which one of those two others does our communications staff?
They live in the first bucket, the support services.
So I misspoke, support services, all of the aides are under instructional supervision.
Okay, so not under the other.
No, support
Okay.
services is, it's HR, it's fiscal, it's communication, it's purchasing, it's superintendent's office, it's all of those offices that are,
Specialized?
that are specialized.
Got it.
But all of our aides are under the instructional, the instruction line.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, under instruction, if someone were to give a training to I don't know, staff about something, would that fall under instruction?
It depends.
Okay.
Depends on the department, right?
It depends on the recipient. So if, again, we follow standardized account code guidelines. And so if the intent of the professional development is to improve instruction, which the majority of what we do is, then it's going to be coded to instruction. If it's something that is outside of that, then it's coded to professional development.
Okay.
If it's for Title I, then it has to be paid for, if it's for parents, it has to be paid out of.
Right.
Got
It depends on who it's geared towards.
Okay, thank you.
For staff, it's
So with the, going back to the broad stroke of all this is that everything affects the bottom line.
Absolutely.
And you cannot anticipate or predict, a classroom or a year in advance. You do your prediction, but you have to be flexible to adjust. And so that's that fluid within the different categories?
We do, even as we were putting this together and we were updating for current conditions, one of the things that we are doing better on is employee attendance.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas we had built in certain budgets for substitute coverage, we actually we reallocated some of that budget because staff has been present. Now, that doesn't tend to be the case for the second part of the year. As staff exhaust their time and things happen, we tend to see a higher cost of substitutes in the second half of the year.
Thank you.
If I can add just one other thing, as we're talking about the budget being fluid and changing, I think one of the challenges is the timeline when the board of the district having to meet to bring the budget for board approval. The challenge is that the school districts go off what's called the governor's budget May revise. So whatever is proposed in May, that's pretty much the assumptions school districts are working off of to develop their budget to present to the board. That changes once the governor actually signs the budget. The district can't come back on June 2nd, oh, look, there's a budget now, we got to make all these changes because there's not enough time to make changes and still be able to meet our timelines of the LCAP and the budget approval for the board, then to have to go to the county to review. So there's a lot of changes are made between the time the board adopts a budget with the revenue to the first and second interim, because once the governor signs the budget, a lot of things have changed or may have changed from the governor's proposed budget in May. Then the legislators work it out, whatever they're trying to accomplish with the money, and then the governor finally signs off on it. It used to be a lot more difficult before the law that was enacted, where the legislators would not get paid if they didn't approve the budget by a certain date. So now they seem to meet that timeline all of a sudden. But the governor still has time to sign off on it or send it back. And so that makes it very difficult to do some of the projection revenue, especially when they're last minute throwing in one-time programs that weren't originally in the May revise, and then that throws in some changes that have to be made in the first or second interim that throws the numbers off as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation.
Thank you. All right, what page we on?
So we're on to position control. So if we go back to 85% of total and 75% of unrestricted budget is people, how do we manage that? Like how do we project with data, right? And so we have what's called position control. Position control is a process by which we make decisions and we monitor who we hired, how we hired them, how they're paid. And so the reason this is so important is because if you don't have a strong system and you don't know who you're hiring, who's being paid, when they're being paid, like you can really lose control of your finances, right? And so we're fortunate that we have a really good relationship with HR and Ed Services, and we have a good system. And so nothing gets created, no position gets created without the approval of Dr. Alvarez, Dr. Gibbs, Dr. Black, Dr. Ellis, and myself. We've had this process in place for a long time, and it's worked well. And we've further refine the process to tie in positions that are tied to students to that student's enrollment. Because it's really easy. We have hundreds of aides. I'm not even going to guess. We have hundreds of aides. And so if we have a student leave and that aide is floating around doing something else, that's $80,000. And if we're not keeping track of that and we have another student who has a need, we need to be able to reallocate that person to the student with the need. And so HR is really good with that. So that's what position control is. And so I wanted it, you to
Excuse
actually
me.
see what it looks like
Were
for
you
us.
referring a one-on-one aid?
Yes.
Or
Well, we have, yes,
Example.
something like that. Something where they can be repurposed.
right, versus somebody who's just part-time in the classroom?
Or who has a specialty job that cannot be used in a different capacity.
Okay, I wanted to differentiate. Thank you.
So this is, I hope that you can see it better on your slide. So what we do is, this is an actual report from our system. And what we do in an ongoing basis is we look at who's hired and what are we expecting them to earn in the year. This report gives us everything that they are, that is predictable. So if we have a teacher, it's going to show us their primary salary. It's going to show us if they earn a doctorate stipend, or some sort of, longevity stipend, anything that is predictable and ongoing. It's going to calculate and factor it into their projected annual cost. If the individual is having a step and column increase, it's also going to factor that in. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. And so what we do is we reconcile to our budget constantly. The second exhibit that you see is how do we identify our vacancies? When a position becomes vacant, this report will show us that it's vacant, and it also shows the projected amount of salary that is earmarked for that vacancy.
That'll be available.
That will be available. So what we do is we know for the most part how long it may or may not take HR to recruit for a certain position, and we project. So if it's an instructional aide, from start to finish, it's going to be 2 to 3 months. So from this amount, we back out 2 to 3 months worth of salary, and we reallocate that to substitute cost. So we constantly look at data. So when the assumption is made that these projections are not factual or not based on data, that's inaccurate. The system itself helps us a lot in being able to tell us, Diane's going to have step and column in October, so then the monthly amount is going to go up. So let's move on from there.
So no teacher get paid $30,000 a year.
Not in California. No. I don't know. Well, maybe in private school. I don't know. Not in Rialto. I can speak for Rialto.
California
So what
teachers
is
are the
base-
highest
a
paid
step
in the
one,
nation.
what is the base salary of a teacher?
So if we look at your salary schedule, if you are an incoming teacher and you have your bachelor's plus 30 semester hours,
56.
you're going to start at 70,334. Some of our lower paid teachers may be our CTE teachers who have hold a CTE credential. But even them, we do allow for higher placement if they're coming with industry experience. So even though on the salary schedule they may start off lower, because being in order for them to have their CTE credential, they have to show time in industry. Many of them start on step 8 or 9. And so I wanted to speak about steps because I've been in school districts so long that I forget that people in the community may not know what we refer to as step and column, which is why I brought the salary schedules. So again, we have these bargaining agreements that we've agreed to on how we're going to compensate our employees. So in private industry, negotiations for salaries are usually done between the employee and their management, right? Maybe they have internal unless they have a union. If they have a union, they might have a similar document to this. But if they don't, those are individual negotiations. Well, for us, that's done between us and our union, and we have a salary schedule. So when we refer to step and column, column refers to the employee's ability to move between the columns if they desire to obtain more education or a higher level of degree. That will give them an additional 5% in their compensation. If the employee has worked at least 75% of their contract, they will automatically step down and get an additional 3%. And so, again, because we have previously agreed to these things, and this is known information for us, this is like the number one thing that we factor into our budget projections, because we know that automatically our teachers or our certificated staff will step down. Now, that being said, the way that the salary schedule is structured, depending on your education level, you may only go so far, right? So when you look at our adjustment, it's not an automatic 3% higher cost, because we may have staff that have reached the bottom of their ability to progress,
Maxed out.
the max. If we look at classified, so classified is a little different. So we have columns and steps. The steps reference the position they hold. So depending on the position you hold is the level of compensation you'll be able to earn. The way that they increment, if they meet, the 75% of their contract, is through the columns. So every column, there is a 5% difference, up to 6 years. So for the first 6 years of my employment placement on this salary schedule, and I say placement, I'll explain in a minute, I will receive an additional 5%.
So they max out.
We have, yes, we have employees who come to our district with experience. So HR will evaluate that experience, and maybe you're not starting on step 1, you're starting on step 3, and you will have 3 more additional steps. So
And
again,
you know that, you
Yes.
know that, and that's the range.
so
which is good.
these costs we are aware of and we build into our budget projections. When we have negotiations, independent of this process, and we offer a salary increase, that adjustment is on top of this. So, that doesn't get built into the budget until there is an offer. If we get to our budget development stage where we have to present to the board, and we've already extended a salary increase, we built it into our budget because we cannot take it back. Like we cannot do regressive bargaining. And so what that means is if I offer you 2%, I can't come back next time and tell you, well, now I'm only going to give you 1. So if at that point we've offered 2, then we're going to build in the step and column, and we're also going to build in the 2% that we've offered. Okay?
So last year, they received a 9%.
That was a couple years ago.
Right. So it has varied, so it's not that the district do not recognize when we can, we do, and we do it consistently with good faith, reviewing the budget. Okay.
Absolutely. So, what other types of things do we consider when we're looking at our payroll budgets, right? We look at, are any programs ending? Are any programs changing? Do we have new requirements? We had a new screener for our TK through second. And so we knew that that would not only take professional development, that was going to take extra duty for implementation. And so you're going to build in budget for that. If we have like a specialized grant that's ending, then that's going to get moved out. And so you're going to see more of that once Nicole gets into the projections. And again, like things change. Our school sites are really good about being creative. And so maybe they plan for, I'm going to offer 100, tutoring sessions, and they built in the money for those sessions. And then it turns out that the students don't want to come, but they're attending the virtual phone call through a vendor. So then they reallocate. And so if you're looking at it from the outside, it looks like, oh, they were trying to overstate the compensation by $100,000, but it turns out that it was just reallocated for a different purpose. So again, like, this information is all public information. It's available to the board and anybody in the community, whoever wants to see it, and we would be more than glad to share.
Is it on the website?
This is not on the website.
Okay.
In order,
Is-
it would be too much to share.
Okay, okay. So I don't know how we can make it more accessible to our,
Please make
Our-
an appointment,
or.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
because this is quite
It's financial.
convoluted. It's,
yeah, I mean,
yeah, you'd almost need an accounting degree and a day to just figure out
Our
you know,
schools do have
basics.
their school site councils, and they do a good job of sharing budget data.
okay.
And so
perfect.
if we are a parent, a community member, that is a really good place to start asking, well, you know, how does our school spend their money? Can you walk me through it? That's probably a good place to start. If you're looking for something a little beyond your school site, then definitely reach out to us.
Okay, and then why does on the certificated salary schedule on the step, there's 15, and under BA plus 45 some hours 3, it's blank, but then it goes down to 113,000.
So the way that these salary schedules were negotiated is that an employee who's under, say, that column with BA plus 45, for the first 14 years, they'll progress. They have to wait until the beginning of year 17 before they step again.
Oh, so that's kind of mandated by the state or by the law?
No, that's
their
the,
contractual
That's the
agreement.
contract.
Yes,
Okay,
that's how we-
contract
yep.
agreement. Got it, all right, yeah.
is there any other
Long
questions?
comp study that took them quite a few years to
Yes.
do
Oh,
those
the
steps.
case.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, got it.
No, this is me. So then, just to kind of give you a little more, following the same trend, so we went through our 1,000s, which is certificated, our 2,000s, which is our classified, and now we're going to look at our cost of benefits. So our 3,000s, this range, yes, Mr. Montes?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Would it be okay, was it too much to ask, to provide, the same, copies to?
They were provided at the beginning.
You got them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay, just wanna make sure. Thank you.
No, yes, Dr. Alvarez made sure we were prepared today.
Okay.
Everybody in the room
Last time
was.
they didn't get them, but this time they did.
Yes, we
Okay,
will make
thank
sure
you.
we're ready.
Appreciate it, Dr. Alvarez.
So in our 3,000s, this is where we record our expenses related to our benefits. And so again, we speak about what do we have discretion, what don't we have discretion. Us as public employees of a public system, we get to participate in CalSTRS and CalPERS. These are two retirement plans that we refer to as defined benefit plans, and they are a blessing. What does this mean? When you contribute to Social Security, your retirement check is based on your contributions, right? For us as members of a defined benefit plan, it's defined on their calculations. Simplistically, it's the number of service years, a funding rate, and your compensation. And so we are guaranteed a monthly amount at our retirement based on our individual data. If you contribute to a 403 or a 401k out in
Based
the
on
public,
market.
it's based on how well your investments do. And so why I feel blessed to have a plan like this is because it's predictable, right? Like, you know that when I go to retire,
You know
so
what you're in.
I know what I'm gonna get,
And
right?
that's on top of Social Security.
And that's on top of Social Security. Now, for us classified, so us in classified, we contribute to both PERS and Social Security. Our certificated members don't. They only contribute to their STRS. So our teachers will not have Social Security unless they had a prior career that allowed them to participate in that system. So why is that relevant? Because there are contributions that come with participating in this plan. So if you're a member of CalSTRS, which is our certificated people, you contribute 10.25% of your salary. The district has to contribute 19.1%. For members that are classified, we contribute to CalPERS. If you are a classic member, which means that you were in place before the retirement reform, you contribute 7%. If you came in after, you contribute 8%. And then the district contributes 26.81%. So anytime we make a decision around a new position or increasing the number of hours for positions, it automatically triggers including these costs. You'll see Social Security, Medicare, those are, everyone contributes to those. Ours is our alternative retirement system. This is what our noon duty aides, crossing guards contribute for. You have to meet a certain number of labor hours before you're eligible to participate in STRS or PERS. But as a district, we have to have an alternative retirement system, which is what we provide for them. The next biggest expense is our health and welfare benefits. We spoke about this last
So,
time.
excuse me, so this is like your safe harbor for your, like your noon dirty,
Yes,
that you can
yes,
always take something out for them?
yes.
Okay.
For health and welfare in the district, we have a soft cap, meaning that the cost of providing our benefit plan as agreed upon in our agreements, we have to provide. And so for our certificated members, the district has to contribute $21,461. For our classified membership, we contribute $23,021. Our district is very generous when it comes to our benefits. In our district, if you work 6 hours a day, we provide 100% coverage. In other districts, you would have to work 8 hours a day for coverage. And not to mention that it's not coverage just for yourself, it's coverage for you and your dependents. And so if you notice, some of our positions do have a lower turnover rate. It's because of changes like this.
And that's also negotiated in the union
Right, these are
contract
all,
as well.
yes, yes. The other part that I think sometimes we don't speak about is workers' comp insurance. So you see it under the 3,000s because the way that workers' comp works is they look at our district, they look at our practices, they look at what happens at our schools, they look at the number of incidents that we report and determine what is our risk. How much reserves do we need to have set aside for Rialto and the likelihood of them having workers' comp claims? We do have a great risk management department that works to contain these and prevent, and we work with our union representatives to establish safe processes at our schools, but there's still a cost. And so as you can see for us, that's 3.3 for certificated, 1.5 for classified. The other item to highlight here is our CERP. Sometimes people think that once we issue the CERP, the retirees leave, that somehow their retirement plan is magically funded. It's not. For 5 years, the district has to make a payment to the administrator so that we can in turn pay those retirees. And so that cost is captured here with the benefits. Again, what I want for you guys to take away as a board and the community is that the district has a lot of obligations to meet, and there is not the level of discretion that is perceived. We're gonna go through on to the next areas. Is there any questions up to this point?
Oh, this is great. This is great, brings a lot of clarity.
I'm like,
Ready to get hired?
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to walk us through the rest of our presentation, and the first slide we're going to go over is our 4,000s. So as Diane mentioned earlier, our 4,000s are our materials and our supplies, and you'll see it captured on your SACS forms in the multi-year, exactly as it says, 4,000s and materials and supplies. So in our materials and supplies, I wanted to point out two of our bigger items. So the first item is under Object 4110, and this is going to be the same layout that you've seen with the certificated and the classified and the benefit spreadsheets. So Object 4110, that's how we classify our purchases of our textbooks. So for this upcoming year, we have an estimated budget in just our restricted side of $5 million for our upcoming math adoption. Now, this is just, this is just unrestricted dollars. The actual math adoption, we're projecting to be between $7 to $7.5 million. So the remainder of that adoption will be funded with unrestricted dollars. And that's not reflected on this
From the
exhibit.
From the general fund.
Yes, it's still the general fund, but it's just the restricted side versus the unrestricted side.
Question, so for the textbook, since this is a restricted one, do we at any point use the Title I for low performing students, or?
So for the math adoption, we actually get restricted, they're called restricted lottery funds, and they're specifically geared towards instructional materials, textbooks, whether it be physical or virtual. So we're planning on using those dollars first.
So we're being more intentional with it, instead of using our Title I, we can use it in something else.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And so we generally, when we have big, large math, not specifically math, but large textbook adoptions or any type of subject, core subject matter, we do use our lottery first before we start reaching into other areas.
Well, I feel better about playing now.
Yes, so definitely play the lottery.
You don't feel guilty?
If I can just clarify, Title I cannot be used for any base expense. And so we cannot use Title I for any textbooks. If we were to buy supplemental materials in support of the primary adoption, we could, but not for base.
Not for the core?
No.
Okay, got it.
People know.
Could you, for the public and for myself, on lottery funds, those are what give us our Prop 98.
They do tie into it, but we do also receive specific funds from the lottery. So we have our
For certain things.
for certain things, yes. So like we have, it's Resource 6300, and so that is what we use for our textbooks, any type of instructional materials that we need in the classrooms on core subjects. And then we also receive a separate pot, which is also restricted, that we use to offset our teacher salaries. And that is a requirement that those funds can only be used for that.
For the teachers?
Yes, well, not necessarily teachers, but certificated salaries.
You mentioned textbooks couldn't, or Title I is not able to be used for textbooks. What if there was like a culturally competent class where we did some kind of, like a social studies?
If the social studies course is identified as a core subject, meaning that it's not for elective credit or any type of other credit, then we couldn't.
But elective credit, yes.
Yes, like if it's not a requirement for graduation or part of the core classroom, we could. Or say that the adoption name calls for certain books, but we want to infuse the class with more culturally relevant, opportunities. Because it's supplemental to what we already offer, then we could.
So the next large pocket of money that we have in our materials and supplies is under 4310, which is literally materials and supplies. So we have $7.8 million budgeted there, and although that seems like a large amount, 4.3 million of that is directly allocated to the school sites. So this can be used to purchase their instructional supplies, their custodial supplies, basically any item that's pencils, paper, toilet paper, basically anything that's under $500. And so while this is directly tied to the school sites, it's difficult for us to anticipate how much they're actually going to spend throughout the year, because our intention is to give them the budget that we feel that they're going to need to be able to support their students, and then it is up to the site administration to actually follow through on their spending plan. And that's at no fault of the administration. It could be anything happened. Maybe there was something that happened at the school site and a plan fell through. Maybe they had a program that was going to be in place, but for some reason the contract couldn't get completed, and so we couldn't provide those types of services, so we didn't in turn have to buy the supplies that we needed to put on that program. Yes.
So what happens if they don't use the budget that you allocated for them for the school year? If they don't, if they don't,
Use all the money?
if they don't use it, you know, if they don't use all of it, then what happens?
So we like to give the schools as long as we possibly can to use the funds that they are allocated. And so Diane mentioned earlier that when we look at the salaries, as we move throughout the year, if we notice that a position is not being filled, we start pulling that money back and we reallocate it to either somewhere else that it's needed or it goes into the fund balance to be used in the following year. Now, with supplies, we like to hold off on doing that for as long as possible, again, to give the school sites every opportunity to be able to purchase what they need, what their students need, what their staff needs. And so we wait, we give them as much time. And so after the purchasing deadline, which is normally around March-ish, we start pulling back supply budgets. And then we start looking at that money, we put it back into fund balance, or we allocate it to where we needed it. So maybe we under budgeted in a contracted services for that particular school site. We're gonna move that budget to where it needs to cover the over expense.
Is it common for some school sites to not use all of their materials and supplies budget? Is it?
Some schools are better than others. So we have some schools that will go through they make plans and they overplan because, you know, some things are bound to fall out. And so they will overplan and overextend themselves, and then it's a miracle and everything came through and everything happened. And so at the end of the year, they're asking us, hey, is there any way that we can be allocated more funds? You know, we have this really great program that we want to do with the students, but we need to purchase X, Y, and Z. And so we'll look at the budgets and we'll see if there's money for that. 9 times out of 10, we're able to figure something else out. On the flip side, you have school sites where maybe administration is new and their first year, they're trying to get settled and they're trying to see what their school actually needs. And they're doing an evaluation of school programs and the supplies and the furniture and everything else. And so the prior administration established their budget, but then they came in and had to kind of figure everything out. And so in those cases, we do have sites that don't use all of their supply money.
But we have someone to support them.
Yes,
And the other question, like there was a fire in one of the classrooms, I think it was Rialto High.
yes.
And so that's like a whole anticipated damage. Now, is that taken from the school site to replenish?
No.
Or is
No,
it just?
so we did receive an insurance payment for that, but before we received the insurance payment,
Still had
we had to replace the
Right.
furniture, we had to replace the books. So we, as a district, provided additional funds to them to be able to do that.
So it doesn't really go. And then the other general, like pesticides and rodent control, is that each school site control or is that a district?
So,
Well, this was
sort
what
of.
you're talking about maintenance.
So sites receive allocations for custodial uses, for cleaners and things like that. When it comes to the pesticides and everything, approved pesticides,
Right.
that is gonna be mainly our maintenance and operations department who come out and handle that.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Montes, you had another question? I think.
Yeah, in regards to the schools that, you know, that use up all of their allocated funds and the ones that don't, when the ones that don't, is it always only because there's new administration there, or
No.
sometimes they just don't?
No, that's just an example, that since I've been in this position and in fiscal, that I've seen happen. We have other times where maybe there's a tragedy that happens at the school and it just throws everything off. We have administrators who maybe need more assistance in understanding the budget process, and so we're always available for them to reach out to. I know myself and Diane, we've met with principals one-on-one. I've gone out to school sites to help. Sometimes they have vacancies in their accounting positions, and so it's very difficult for the principal to be able to say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, but then I don't have my accounting person who's there, who should be there to be able to process the requisitions and process the PSRs to everything.
We have had teachers come and tell us that they're having to buy pencils and paper out of their own pockets, and you know, and we're like, wait, we have money for
Yes,
that.
we
Why-
absolutely
why
have
do
money.
Why do they have to spend out of their own pocket?
Yes, and we definitely encourage that if that is a situation and that is coming up, to please reach out to us, because again, it might just be that the site is lacking staff due to vacancies. And so I have an accounting assistant one in my office, and I frequently have sent her out to school sites where they've had vacancies in their project clerk position or their accounting assistant technician, assistant one position. And she's gone out and helped them catch up on requisitions, process PSRs to make sure that things don't fall through the crack until we are able to get a stable sub.
Is that position at the elementary schools, middle school and high school?
Yes, so we have project clerks at the at the elementary and middle schools, and then we have accounting assistants
Okay.
at the middle schools and the high schools.
Dr. Alvarez, is there a process a formal process we could put into place for these needs at the end of the year, or paper or pencils, whatever, in a classroom? Can we put a formal process together? That way the principal can know, just fill this out.
How does it,
So usually if a school site has run out of money, I'll just say that example. Let's say it's March and the school site's used up all their site allocation. I have yet to see a district not work with them to say, okay, what do you need? See how we can help you out and get whatever you need for the rest of the school year. That's usually the process. I've never seen a school left like, oh, well, figure it out. We've always gone above and beyond to help them out. So I think that's just, and they know who's running show, low or not. I think there's updates on their budgets. Hey, mid-year report, you have 50% of your funds left, 70, 30, 20. And so I think that process happens with the fiscal department. And so when they're putting in requisitions where it says not sufficient funds, I think that's when the conversations begin. Because the system allows people to put in requisitions to purchase items, and the approval process allows for fiscal to review it. If there is no money, and we see no money anywhere, then that's the conversation of, hey, you're out of money, to March. What do you need? What are you looking for the rest of the school year? So we can make sure we can support what you need for the students in the classroom.
But just to be clear, that
The
doesn't mean
excess.
spend your funds first.
That's what I'm
And then,
Right.
balance is right.
Yeah.
I mean, if one school site's using a lot of their money for pizza parties and DJs, and another school site's using it for programs and supplies, somebody's got to say, hey, well, maybe you need to cut back on your,
So when the school site does the requisition to request to do basically anything, purchase any type of supply, any type of service, even food, they have to create a requisition. And so when they create that requisition, it goes through a number of approvers. So it'll go through the secretary will create it, the site administrator will review it and approve it and decide if it's appropriate. And then it will go on to their support provider, who is somebody in ed services, to review and make sure that it's in line with what the school has wanted to put in place. And then from there, it still goes through fiscal services. It goes through, depending on what department or what site is doing it, it will either go through business services or it will go through ed services. And so there are multiple people who are reviewing things to make sure that they're appropriate.
Now, is that a barrier? Because what I'm hearing from teachers is
Yeah.
they don't want to go through all those steps just to have, $50 worth of, in and out burger certificate.
Correct.
And so that's what's driving them to go through their own purse. I don't know, I'm not in the
It's a
classroom,
choice.
but
Well,
but
usually,
I'm just, I
usually
just
the-
want to have
Same thing that
clarification.
Some of
Dr.
the-
Lewis is saying.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
doing
some
same
of
thing.
the some of the purchases are done through an open PO. So we have vendors we work with where we allocate a requisition that ends up being a PO for, like, let's say $10,000. And those vendors know what can be purchased from their store or not, and so then sites a purchase order,
Purchase order.
which is the final approval of being able to spend money at that location and that dollar amount. And so there's no need for the principal to say, well, I'm gonna spend $300 on pencils to go through this long, drawn-out process again.
So if I can add some context, like in my experience when we do hear these, because from our end, we've done everything possible to protect the budgets at the school sites, right? What we find is it's the culture at the school site. Do the teachers feel comfortable? Do my custodians feel comfortable? Does anybody feel comfortable asking for what they need? And I'm sure some of you have been here long enough Tobin's here long enough to have gone through the paper crisis where people used to literally give out a ream of paper at a time. There is no need for that. There is no need for that. We are all adults. We all trust each other. We are trusted with children. So I should be able to trust that when you come to me and you say, I need, number 2 pencils and I need 48 of them. that the
Chromebooks.
secretary, the clerk, whoever is processing that order provides you with what you need to teach children. And so if people approach you about these problems, please let us know, let Dr. Alvarez know, Dr. Gibbs, Dr. Black, anybody, and we will go out and work with that school site, because you should not be paying for things out of your pocket for two reasons. It's not your obligation. And again, we go back to liability. You pay for something that maybe is not a compliant pencil because it's, made in a different country, and it's not compliant with, I can't remember, it's like Prop 69 or something like that. And a child has an allergic reaction. And when we go through the process, it comes out that you brought that pencil from home. Now you're going to be questioned. We're going to be questioned because we allowed you to use that pencil. Like, school district business is complex. Things like this, there should be no barriers to having what you need to teach children.
So now, the thing with that is people are afraid to come forward because of the fear of retaliation. So they just prefer to do it on their own. And you're right, it is a culture. So we need to get rid of that mindset and start with that positivity. And if they're afraid to speak up, don't be afraid to speak up. I mean, look at me. I mean, I'm not afraid to speak up, and there hasn't been very nice things said about me, some that are not true. Let it be. I still feel comfortable being able to speak up. So the fear of retaliation is always going to be there, but we're here to do our job, and our job is to put our children first. So you're right. We shouldn't be afraid to speak up and say, hey, I need number 2 pencils for my kids. I need erasers for them. I need, folders for them or something. But we need to be able to speak up. And if you are getting shut down by your principal, by the secretary, or if the secretary is giving you the blind eye or something, it needs to be said.
The
Because we
district
need to teach
definitely
them.
needs to know that there's a cultural problem at
Correct.
the district, I'm sorry, at the
Correct.
site.
But thank you for clarifying the
Process.
liability, the risk and the liability in one taking it upon themselves to purchase supplies themselves because they need it, and they're having difficulties getting the supplies from their site or from the district. The risk that if something happens, you purchased the material, you brought the material onto your campus, and something happens, then that places a liability on the district, which we all know people are gladly willing to sue the district for everything and anything, and that's one less risk liability.
They will try
we have to
personal liability as well.
That we
I
are
think
seeing
the
more and
fire
more of that.
sticks are the biggest thing that people will put in and mess up the IT system, which, I'm not saying people here, but a lot of people plug in their own electronics, so.
I do want to add, just want to make sure we're clear, based on what we're saying. That doesn't mean there's a blank check available.
That's true.
Sorry, just
That's
want to
true.
clarify that. Just want to make sure we're clear. I mean, everything obviously within reason as well.
And we're not buying the Hello Kitty, the one with the sparkles either.
Right, and we do, our administrators do a good job of, when we do have requests like that, to explain, like, here's what I have budgeted, here's what I plan on using. I understand that maybe, you want to, it would be nice to have a certain piece of equipment or a certain type of paper, but maybe, let me look at how I can fund it, or, maybe we can plan for that next year. Like, they are good at explaining when it's a no. I think our biggest hurdle, like Mr. Martinez said, is when they just don't come forward. Because I've ran into teachers where they've told me, like, well, I've had this same chair for 20 years because I feel like I can't ask for one. And it's a chair, and their chair is falling apart, and it's like, well, either we have chairs everywhere across the district, either we'll find you one or we'll get you a replacement one. And it wasn't that the principal was saying no, the principal wasn't even aware. But somewhere along the line, our staff was made to feel like they had to beg for what they needed.
But
And
it's
so
also the
slowly,
responsibility of the
it's up to
principal
us
walk
to
around
change
and
that
look at the
culture.
site.
Absolutely.
So as I notice it's very common for teachers to give, especially at like back to school night or maybe even mid-year, they'll send out like a wish list to the parents or, an Amazon list of things that they like. I guess the same thing as a wish list. And certain things will be on there like wipes, and
Sanitizer.
so are those things that, when you say, come to us, let us know what you need, would those kind of things fall in those categories?
Yes, so those are the things that the district does actually provide. I myself have seen those lists. I have employees in my office whose students attend school in Rialto Unified, and so they'll show me those lists and they'll ask me like, do we not give them Kleenex? Do we not do? And I'm like,
I provided them.
yeah. So I say no. They do. We do provide it. In fact, Dr. Alvarez mentioned a point that we have an open PO or an open purchase order for, let's say, $10,000. And so we have systems in place that if a teacher comes to you one day and says, I completely ran out of pencils, I don't know what happened to them, they're all gone. The secretary or the project clerk or the accounting assistant, one position, can actually go into the system, place an order for pencils, and it will be delivered the next day. So yes, so we have a lot of items that are available either next day or within two business days. But no, those wish lists, a lot of them, either they're specialty items that the teachers are asking for, but the basic ones where it's like pencils and crayons, the district is able and does provide funding for those things.
Do you have a list that streamlines of what is available now versus specialty items? Because like the wish list, I as a parent have contributed to them, and like they're basic stuff. They're like you said, but it's if we're able to provide them, there's also I've also heard, okay, if I put in the PO, it's gonna take till the end of the year for me to get my supplies, or it's gonna take forever. I might as well just buy it on my own. So do we have like a specific turnaround time of like, okay, I can get these pencils within tomorrow, or I can get these I don't know, these binders within by in 3 months? Do we have a list or something to solidify so the
So-
staff knows what they can get now or later?
So it would be difficult to provide a list because we work with 3 companies that have next day delivery services. So it's basically whatever that company provides. Now it's a lot of the basic items that you've just listed. Kleenex, tissue, sorry, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Kleenex, pencils, erasers, crayons, binders. We have a lot of items that they can request. We can provide the catalogs, but the school sites do have access to go into that site's website and see what's on there that they can request the next day.
Okay.
So just as a point of clarification, these e-procurement websites is no different than when we go onto Staples or Walmart or Target. They have thousands of products. So if I want the sparkly crayons, they do have the sparkly crayons available for delivery the next day, but it may be that within my budget as a school site, I budgeted for standard crayons,
Not the sparkly.
not the sparkly. And so it's not that it's not available to them, it's whether or not is within their plan. The other part to that too is school sites can begin putting their orders for the upcoming year in May. So normally when we hear the emergencies, it's not because the process takes so long, it's because there's a lack of planning.
Okay. Do we send out reminders to our school sites to let them know of like, hey, don't forget, deadline is March whatever, or
We
February
do.
whatever?
We do, but at the same time, we also know the chaos and how chaotic it is to run a school.
Correct.
And so more often than not, when people call us and say, there's a requisition waiting at your location, can you approve it? We drop what we're doing to go in there and move it
Correct.
forward, because we also understand that as an administrator, you deal with so many unforeseens, and I don't want to keep your kids from having what they need.
Correct.
I think there's too a parent engagement or family engagement that they like to bring the teacher stuff, and the teachers probably say, not another mug or apple, you know. These are stuff I probably use in my classroom.
I'm going to
So
rein
it
us
could be
in,
both
see
of
if
that,
we
too.
can get back on track time-wise.
Thank you. So one of the things that you, multiple of you brought up was, do you guys meet with the school sites and, give them an update on their budget and talk to them and say like, see how much you have left and what you're going to need and have you run out? So we actually do have budget meetings with the school sites. They actually do happen in March. They'll begin March 9th this year, and they'll be going on for about 2 weeks. And so Diane did it when she was as the director, and I do it now. We meet with the school sites. They have anywhere between 30 to 40 minutes. We go through their budget for next year, as well as where they are right now with their spending, to see if there's anything that we can help them with, or did you run out of money, or maybe you have a lot of money sitting here, and what is your plan? And then that also gives us the opportunity to say, oh, this school site was going to do this, but now they're not. So this is going to be an opportunity for us to be able to pull back that budget because we know that there's intentional non-usage of it.
If they need more than 30 to 40 minutes, can you give them a little more?
Oh, yes. I have. So that is the scheduled block, but then in between each appointment, there's a 30-minute cushion because more often than not they go over. But that's just the standard time.
Okay.
But yes, I have school sites call and they're like, is there any way we can actually schedule more time because I need help developing my budget for next year? So we do that as well. I'm meeting with the school in about a month who's actually asked for help developing it for next year in anticipation of meeting with me.
You guys,
This is just an example, right? These are not, this is just an example, the slide you're showing us.
What
Because
is light?
I see in
No.
the light refreshments, 217,000, and under food, only 400. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Because we
Only
have
400.
breakfast.
So this is different. So there are different pockets. So the actual food lives in the next slide.
Yeah.
And we'll see that.
Got it.
So I'm just going to run through a couple other major categories on this one. So you'll see that we have under 4440, that's our computer, tech, and inventory equipment, and we have 1.5 million budgeted this year. So for us, because we have such a high dependency on technology, because our world has changed, it's going to be very difficult for us to reduce in this section. And so a more likely category that we will potentially reduce in, should we need to going forward, will be our 4401 object, which is our non-capital inventory equipment. So that's items that are anywhere between $500 and $5,000. So that's mainly like our furniture. And so we'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But this is kind of where we are right now as of January 20th. So our next big pocket of expenses lies in our services and other expenses. So these are our 5,000 objects. So I'm going to run through just some of the major categories that we have. They are highlighted in color, so I'm going to try and refer to them as much as possible. So you can see that overall we have $19.7 million budgeted in our services and other expenses category. And while this seems like a very large number, I think as we go through these categories we have, you're going to see that a lot of these costs are either not optional because of our student and staff need, or they're very difficult to reduce. So the first one we're going to look at is Object Code 5110, and this is our sub-agreement for contract. So this is how we pay for our transportation for our McKinney-Vento students, because again, depending on where they live in the district, we have an obligation required by law to transport them to the school of to their school. Even if they live outside the district. And we have that obligation up until a year after they transfer out, or not transfer out, but move outside of our district. And so we have $1.6 million budgeted there. This also includes the contracts that we hold for services that we are able to do ourselves. We just don't have the ability to maybe fill all of the positions because there are just so many. So in this category, it would be our health positions, and then our instructional aides. So again, we have the capacity to do the position ourselves, but we just don't have the capacity to be able to fill all of the positions we have. As Diane mentioned, we have well over, I'm going to say a little bit higher, well over 200 aide positions. The next category we have, it's highlighted in purple, and I'm just going to go down each side. So this is our insurance payments. These are our property and liability, our excess cost insurance, and our sexual assault settlement payments. So with the fires that happened last year, and we did mention this in our budget presentation, we anticipated that we were going to have an increased cost in our property and liability just because even as private citizens, we all saw it. I saw it on mine, so we knew we were going to have it at the district level as well. The next group is going to be our utilities. So our utilities that we have budgeted for this year are total out at $8.7 million. And while we try to implement cost-saving measures and do our best to try and mitigate our usage, we're also held to the need and the usage of our staff and our students. And so while we try and remember that we have a civic obligation to reduce our energy usage, to reduce our carbon footprint, we're also held hostage to our realities. So, for example, a few years ago, we had a contractor come in, an energy saving contractor come in to do an evaluation, and his idea was to just unplug the freezers at the end of the night. That's going to save money, because why would we need freezers overnight? Well, that resulted in $40,000 of spoiled food. So while we bring people in with like the best intentions, they are not operating within our reality. And so our reality is that we can't make that change. We have programs that happen after school. We have staff that work after school. We have student programs. We have student events. And so we can't turn the lights off. We can't shut the air off. But we do try and implement measures to mitigate the usage, or to control, put it into a comfortable comfort zone for
Plus,
staff and
these-
students.
These rates have increased, so we have,
Yes.
that's beyond our control.
Yes.
The rates for water, the rates for electric.
There is room for energy saving though. Like for example, if we don't have climate controlled sprinklers that won't turn on when it rains, instead of the sprinklers being on when it rains.
So I do believe we actually have like programmable sprinklers, and so our irrigation M&O technicians do have the ability to do that, and they are pretty good at monitoring that.
Or considering converting some of the grass areas that are not used at all and turning, instead of watering and wasting water and growing that grass that's not being used, maybe considering alternative types of turf.
Well, that's the circle of life.
I'm just gonna make a comment about that, because I think, again, like, everything has two sides to that.
Yeah.
We, in areas that are not used by students, we have been doing that to reduce the amount of grass. But at the same time, so many of our students don't have access to play areas. And so if anything, we've been working towards making our fields usable, making them inviting, making sure that the grass looks nicer, because I know many of our students who live in trailer parks, they don't even have play areas. They're not allowed to go outside. And so it's kind of like leveraging, again, why are we here and what can we do? All within containing the cost.
Yeah, it's being used. If it's
Yes,
not being used, I'll give you an
yes.
example of Dolores Fuentes, Cesar Chavez. It's got a lot of grass over there.
But we have
And-
events.
But if it's not being used, if there's areas that are not being used, then what are we growing the grass?
Yeah, we, that area, we had facilities planned for, and then we found out that the subground is not stable. And so we can't build on it, but that's a very, very valid point. Like, we definitely will look into something different.
Well, we don't want to be LA. We don't want to be a concrete.
No.
That's why we come out here to the IE and.
But, the board,
Remember the state issued warnings years ago to where they even gave permission to, if homeowners don't want to grow grass, you're no longer required to grow it. Because, like, for example, there were city
Global
ordinances,
warming,
there
no
were
concrete.
city ordinances that had, if your grass was yellow, you're gonna get fined. If your grass is green, you're gonna get fined. Well, now the state allowed flexibility to where, no, if, we're in a drought, or we've historically been in drought, so if you don't water your grass and it dies, guess what? No one can fine you. So homeowners like, myself, for example, I have grass in the back, but I don't need it in the front, so I converted it into water efficient planting.
And I planted trees and gardens and pineapples.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. is
Absolutely,
we can look for ways wherever available. If
Yes.
kids are using it, then they'll
Yeah.
use it. I mean, if the community's using the fields at Dolores Huerta, then let's let them use it. A lot of people are looking for soccer and other fields to use, but if nobody's utilizing it,
Yes.
why are we wasting water?
yeah, absolutely. Know that, like, I have a great business team. Overall, everyone is really good. But we do have many, many people that are new in M&O that are truly committed to serving our students. And within our grounds department, many of them bring forward ideas of, Ms. Roma, what do you think if we change the wings to look like this? What if we, cut this off, because then it reduces the maintenance, and then we can dedicate time to creating this space. They just finished a walking track at Kelly that they did in-house that looks amazing. And so not only did we reduce the amount of grass in that corner that wasn't really used, but now it has a purpose. And so we're always looking at how to leverage the funding that's available, the talent of our staff, containing costs, containing the workload, right? Because every day we're expected to do more and we don't have more staff. And so know that we understand what our board expects from us, and we look at all of our available resources to make it happen.
Yeah, but we have to look at the individual because nature and grass and air quality
Global
and
warming.
kids, you know, we have different, you put rocks, I put trees, and the green grass and the bees. So, you know, we all have, and these kids need to see this. You know,
Yes.
you have a lot of kids who live in an apartment complex. You know, they can't go outside. You know, we can develop it. We need kids, special needs parks and stuff like that, sensory. So, you know, this is not for us to do, but this is really to have everybody viewpoint,
Yes.
you know.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump over to the right column now, and we're gonna look at the next little blue section. It's Object 5810, and that's for our contracted services. So again, it's $4.8 million, $4.8 million, and these are for contracts that we hold with vendors related to PD for staff, classified and certificated, our transportation needs, our contracts for our SROs, contracts such as CLIC counseling, open arms, our translation services, professional development for our social emotional learning, and then also consultants. So while we do have some discretion and we do have some area where we can potentially reduce, again, a lot of these contracts are necessary for the needs of our staff and the needs of our students. The next object I want to point out is Object 5840, and this is our computer-related services. So this is for our software, and we refer to this as our base software. So this includes our malware software, our antiviruses, our firewalls, and basically software that prevents our network from being attacked. Again, yes. And again, because we have such a high dependency on technology, this is not something that we can risk for our staff and our students. The next pocket that I'm going to jump down to is orange, and that is our 5880 other administrative services. So this is where we provide support directly to the school sites for their McKinney, Vento, and Foster students. So this can be in the form of clothing, food, physical necessities, additional services that they might need based on their circumstances. And then also we have in here equipment and uniforms that the schools use for sports. And then other services or items that the school sites determine they need. So a lot of this money sits at the school site level and is dependent on their needs and their request. The final area I'm going to jump down to is our telephone data lines and cable, and that's going to be Object 5910. So this is going to be our district internet and our Wi-Fi hotspots. So these are the Wi-Fi hotspots that if a student doesn't have access to internet in their home, we will issue them one so that they can have access to their devices and their homework and the tutoring services after hours, even when they're not at school. So again, 19.7 million seems like a very large number, but when you look at our major spending pockets, it seems very difficult to be able to reduce and not seriously impact our staff and our students.
We have quite a few that are negative numbers. Did we reallocate those charges somewhere else, or did we just not use those services?
So those are our, we call them our our inter-district charges. And so those accounts are negative because we use those to bill back restricted programs depending on the nature. And so I'm going to jump back to the left side at the very bottom for print services, 5712. It's the second from the bottom. Mm-hmm. So that is for, we spoke about Title I and how it's all supplementary. It all has to be supplemental. So if a school site is requesting that they have a DLI program and the teachers would like 500 worksheets printed so that they can prepare a lesson for their students, they can put a print request in with our warehouse, our print shop that's housed at our warehouse. They can put a request in with the print shop, and then our print shop will print those for them, deliver them to the school site, and then they will submit basically a bill to us, and we will charge the program that the school site has determined. Mm-hmm. And so the money is already in our budget, and so this basically offset the cost for the print shop to be able to charge the school site. Mm-hmm. And so I misspoke. It's not just restricted programs. It can also be unrestricted, but we mainly see it for, especially with print charges, for Title I, which is a restricted program. Do you guys have any other questions on any other categories you'd like me to review on this slide? Because I know there's a lot. Okay, so we're going to move on to our 6,000s object, and this is our capital outlay. So we only have a few categories in here, but I'm going to refer to 3 of them. So we have object 6400, which is our equipment. We have object 6430, which is our vehicles, and then 6440, which is our computer and technology infrastructure equipment. So over the past few years, we have been very diligent about replacing broken, outdated, or just neglected equipment and vehicles for staff safety and for student safety. And so while we have this budgeted in this year, you're going to see in a later slide where we actually reduce it through our multi-year projection, because we know that we have done our due diligence to replace that equipment, replace those vehicles. And so we feel confident that we are at a good enough place right now that this is somewhere that we could reduce and still be responsible. And then
Question.
yes, sorry.
The vehicles are you talking buses and?
Sorry. So the
Student
vehicles are like the warehouse delivery trucks, M&O service trucks, our safety vehicles. So we've done a lot of replacement over the last 3 years.
Yes.
Yes. So this one doesn't include any buses. And so I also want to point out that while we are reducing this budget, we are not eliminating it. So if for some reason in a future year we have a need, let's say that our warehouse truck, the engine explodes and there's no fixing it, and we have to purchase a new one, we will still have some leeway. We just won't be replacing them all on a cycle like we have been able to, because we're not in that environment anymore.
Are the golf carts where they, go, is that school site or that's from this project?
So we discourage school sites from purchasing golf carts themselves, just because there's a lot of
Maintenance.
safety issues. And so if a golf cart is needed at a school site, we prefer that they would go through transportation and work
But
with
it's this
M&O.
budget,
It
or-
would be this budget.
Okay.
But again, we're not reducing it we're not eliminating it, we're just significantly reducing it.
I just see a lot more, the divergent games, I see them.
Yeah.
Football games.
Yeah.
Some places
Yeah,
they're
I just
warning,
didn't know which-
By the time you walk from one end of the campus all the way to the
Yeah,
other end of the
I just
campus.
didn't know which budget, if the schools were purchasing or went sort of district-wide.
Yes, so it can be both, but we do discourage the school sites from purchasing it just because there is a lot of maintenance and there are a lot of other safety factors that need to be considered.
Some of them got rings.
So our final category that we're going to look at is our 7,000s object, and this is our other outgo. And I know that doesn't really mean a lot. It means something to us, but for the general public, I know that doesn't really mean too much. So I'm going to go through what these exactly are. So Miss Williams, you asked earlier about the negative numbers. So those were our intra-district charges. So here we have our interfund charges. So these are also negative because we use them to collect funds from restricted programs to account for the overhead cost. So that's going to be the cost to process their payroll, the cost to process and complete all of the reporting that goes along with those restricted programs. It's going to be the admin overhead. Basically anything that is not directly billable through the restricted funds, this is how we're able to recoup some of that cost. And so these numbers change depending on the usage of the program because it's directly tied to the expenses. And it's a state-approved rate. So every year we get an indirect percentage rate that is given to us by the state. It's not something that we control. This year, I believe it was 6.48. Next year, it's going to be 5.22, I believe. And then below that, we have our debt payments. So that's going to be your 7438 and 7439. We have to designate between interest and the principal payments. So that's going to be what we use to pay our loans. The bottom category is 7611. So this is what we use to fund our Rialto preschool. So we have Rialto preschool and then we have our state preschool. The Rialto preschool is what we use for students who don't qualify to attend the state preschool. We recognize that getting kids in school as early as possible will give them the greatest chance for success in their academic career. So that, again, this is something we don't feel that we could responsibly eliminate.
Quick question on that last one.
Yes.
Are we funded for that, or are we reimbursed for it? Or is it just that because we believe in kids?
It's because we believe in kids. So we receive no money for our Rialto preschool. We have to, as a district, specifically set funds aside to be able to support that program.
Don't we get funds from the county too for the preschool programs or from the state or? don't we-
So that's the state preschool. So we
That's the
do
state
get,
preschool,
we do
okay.
get state funds from the state for the state preschool, and that is based on their attendance.
Got it.
But this program is not considered part of that.
Now, are we still restricted to where our Rialto-funded students can go versus the state-funded students?
Yes, so there is an income limit for the state preschool. They do have a caveat that we have to offer 10% of our spots to special needs students, and they are not held accountable to that income limit. And so they do have access to that. So this program would be for anybody who doesn't qualify through those means.
And they can go to their home school or any school. It's not certain schools only take state-funded.
So unfortunately, because of our facilities, we have to have state licensing approved for the state programs, the state preschool programs. And so those programs will have priority to the preschool sites. And then wherever we are able to put a Rialto-funded preschool, we will put one there if we are able to.
It's like with the after-school program, some of our schools, a couple of our schools don't qualify for the funding for like Saturday school or after school, so we have to pay for it ourselves in order to offer it to all of the kids, because those schools, the average median is at a certain level higher than what qualifies for the funding. Correct?
Yes, yes.
Kind of, sort of.
My question was more like, okay, we have, if I live over here, but I want to go to school, want my kids to go to preschool here, and this is a state-funded school, can I go here, or do I have to go to the other school that's on,
They're the same, it's just the only difference is which one's being funded by what, which one's being paid for by what.
If you
I
go
I
down
think the
that-
answer was that depending if there's a slot available at that school.
And whether you
criteria.
qualify.
And you qualify. If you
Yes.
don't qualify, you may be able to go in under the Rialto school district funded preschool, which has no income contingency, but there will only be so many slots that the $500,000 will cover. So if you live by one school and that's where you want your child to go to preschool and you can't, and your income is too high, if there's no slot available there, we would have to look at what's the next nearest school to put a slot, where there is an open slot.
Yes, that's correct.
But it's our mission to serve
All
everyone,
students,
and
yes.
so that's money well spent.
Yes, we agree. Okay, so we have discussed a lot of objects and a lot of different categories. Do you guys have any questions before we jump into how those tie into our multi-year projections?
I don't know if I missed it, but during one of the CSBA trainings, they were saying, the books and supplies, which I guess we label books and materials, consisted of more than just books and materials. But I see like we delineated out, but they did mention the bus. So is that where you guys were saying like buses would be in the 4,000s?
So are you talking about purchasing buses? So purchasing buses, so if you're referring to purchasing buses, okay, let me back up even further. So when we say materials and supplies, we're referring to items that are between $0 and $500. And so then after that, we jump up in categories. So they're all under materials and supplies in the 4,000s objects, but us as a district, let me go back. Let me see if I can.
No, let's not go back.
I want to make sure that we have some clarity here. So we say materials and supplies, and that encompasses all 4,000 object codes. But as a district, and according to our SACS accounting code structures, we have to also delineate between the price point for the objects. So materials and supplies under 4310 is anything up to $500. But then we jump up to the 4401 and the 4440. So when we refer to something as a 44 object code, that means that the price point is now between $500 and $5,000. And so that's where we would refer to still as a material and supply in the overall, but we break it up into certain categories. Now for buses, that is going to be well over $5,000, at least I hope, because I would not want to ride in a bus that costs less than $5,000. So that's where we would then come over to our capital outlay. So that would be budgeted in this, in these objects under a 6,000, because 6,000 indicates anything over $5,000 for us. And so if we were to purchase buses, we haven't this year, we haven't in past years, it would be under the 6430 object code, but that is not included in this budget.
The last time we got buses, the AQMD provided all of the funding for our natural gas buses.
We were
Yes.
transitioning.
And replaced all of the diesel buses that we had.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, when we talk about books and supplies, because I know that's a big thing, that we really capture everything that's in there. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Strong work.
Thank you. Okay, so any other questions? Because we're gonna dive in. Okay.
Oh, we haven't already?
Oh no. Oh no.
I wondered if we're going to touch on this form
We're
and,
gonna
and show where raises are available.
we're gonna speak about that form, but it's gonna be a very simplified form. It's gonna follow that same structure, but it's a little bit more simplified in the presentation.
And that's probably the one the board actually is supposed to be knowledgeable on. The very simple one.
And I'd hate to have schedule another workshop, but if we're not gonna be able to cover everything, I think, maybe like a certain cap today, with a certain time cap today.
1 o'clock, my poor doggy's still waiting,
Okay.
unless somebody wants to
So
come
if
and
we
pick up
can't
doggy
cover,
stuff.
if everyone's okay with, if we can't get through everything by 1,
Yeah.
Well,
We'll have them.
let's give it a break for this month. We've had two in
this
this
month.
month.
Okay, just don't ask questions, guys, and we'll get through this.
Yeah. Start this ball rolling.
You read my mind.
Okay, so here, we're gonna start on our multi-year. So up until this point, you guys have seen 25, 26, 26, 27, and 27, 28. So we're gonna run through those really quick, and then I'm gonna show you some of the assumptions and adjustments that we've included and then are anticipating and projecting that we might have to make. So this is our current year budget. It's as of January 20th, 2026. So this has changed from the time we presented you with first interim December until now, because we're currently cleaning up our budget to be able to do our projection for second interim. So the forms that Diane gave you are, while you can refer back to them for descriptions, they're not really relevant in terms of numbers. Let's see. Okay, so let's see, where do I want to start? So these numbers, although we're currently in the year and we are cleaning up the budget, like I mentioned, they have changed. So for example, we recently were awarded a grant for our math authorization for our teachers. So that's included in here as well now, whereas previously, even during first interim, it wasn't. We also received an additional allocation for our K2 screener for dyslexia. And so again, that was built in because we just received the notification, I believe, on Tuesday. And so at first interim, that wasn't in there. We also make adjustments for expenditures that we know at this point in the year are for sure not going to happen. And then we also have to update for new projects that were unanticipated. And so this document is fluid and it is constantly changing. And so I think it's really important that you guys understand and that the community understands that when we present our budget and when we present these updates, they are projections. They are not a prediction. And so we do our best to make sure that we have all of our information and everything that goes into this. But again, we can only work with the information we have available at that time. And so all of the information that Diane and myself have just presented to you about salaries and supplies and contracts and the vehicle purchases, we have to anticipate that they are going to happen this year. And the math textbook adoption is a perfect example. We have that built into this year. You'll see it's built in this current year, and our intention is that it will be completed. We'll have enough time to pilot it, and then we'll be able to purchase everything, and we'll get all the textbooks and supplies before June 30th. However, if that doesn't happen, if there's a delay, if the publisher can't get us what they need, then that expense and that budget is going to be moved to the following year. And so right now, it's built into 25-26 because that's what we anticipate. But when we come back for maybe budget, when we come back to present you with budget and we bring our estimated actuals, that could change because we might have updated information from the publisher based on the timeline. So I'm just going to refer to the right-hand side where it says assumptions built into budget projections. So we've already spoke about step and column, and we also anticipate that our health and welfare will once again increase based on trends and information we have right now. And so we have that in the budget. And then if we go down a little bit, you'll see in blue, it says LREBG. So that is our Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant that we received a few years ago. And in anticipation of us losing our COVID funding, we allocated those funds to be able to support reading specialists, and we were able to keep them on for an additional 3 years. We also have a transfer of teacher salaries from those funds from our unrestricted dollars to help with our solvency issue. And then also some of the coaches that we have at the high schools and the middle schools, specifically our ELA and our ELD coaches. And so right now in this current year budget, they are funded out of restricted funds. And so their salary is not reflected in the unrestricted column like they traditionally would be. So there are a couple things that I want to point out on the left side in the multi-year piece. So you'll see that under fund balance reserves, under beginning balance, we started the year with a $204 million reserve. So that reserve is made up of the two numbers beside it, 87 million in unrestricted dollars and 117 million in restricted funds. So we did a presentation in September where we broke out how these restricted dollars were going to be used. And you'll see that they are being utilized in our multi-year projection to bring that balance down as we move on. You'll also notice that on the unrestricted column, under total revenues, our total revenue that we have projected this year, again, this is based on all of the information we have, is $289 million. But if you go down under expenditures to total expenditures, we are projected to spend $317 million. Again, a lot of this budget is staff. It's budget that's allocated to the school sites. And so we have very little control over whether or not the positions are going to be filled, whether people are going to leave mid-year, whether the schools are going to be able to spend all of their funding. And so right now, this is what we are projecting. Later on in the year, it could decrease, it could increase depending on the needs of the schools and the students and the staff. So, but because of this, because we have less revenue than we have expenditures, we are deficit spending. And so because we are deficit spending, at the end of this fiscal year, we are projecting that our ending fund balance between restricted and unrestricted dollars will be $153 million. So that will be an overall decrease of $51 million to our ending fund balance.
Scared me.
Could-
I thought that was our deficit that you
No,
were
no, no.
giving me.
Could you go back, sorry, for just one, I think there was one piece that, that was mentioned that I think does need to be pointed out, just so everyone, all of you are clear on this part. On the right, you see all of it, the blue part, the second line item where it says LREBG teachers, $15 million?
Yes.
And and I don't need specific, like, school site or anything like that. Those LREBG teachers, $15 million in salaries, are they specialized teachers like TOSAs, teachers on assignment?
What does
No.
LREBG mean?
Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant provided by the state, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So the
And,
teachers who are funded, who we use to fund through this program, they're just regular general ed teachers, and they're across all grades, all school sites.
So and when are these funds expected to expire or
So-
be spent by?
These funds they're going to expire June 2028. However, we are going to exhaust them prior to that. And so
Why?
because we have more expenses in there than we received funds. So we have it in a future year. I'll show you where we start bringing them back.
Just to be clear, if we did not fund these additional 3 years, that money would have been available for raises?
We could have used it for a variety of reasons.
But could you use it for ongoing raises?
It would not be advisable.
For LREBG?
Yes, because it is one-time funds.
Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so now we're going to look at our second year. So again, this is information that you have seen already, but it has been updated it has been updated since first interim because again, we are updating our current year projections and those directly tie into our future years. So we recently attended, literally on Thursday, we attended the governor's workshop budget. And so at that time, we were able to get more updated information. So at first interim, we projected a COLA of 2.42%. And while we were close, it actually came in at 2.41. And so we have updated our numbers to reflect that change in the COLA. We've also updated our ADA because at first interim, we had a certain enrollment, and so we were projecting that based on our current attendance percentage, we would be able to claim a certain amount of attendance. However, we continue to lose students. And so just from before break until we've come back now, I believe we've lost around 100 additional students. And that can be for a variety of reasons. But simply, even though our attendance percentage rate is increasing, and that is fantastic, simply because we have less students, the ADA is going to be less, just in that correlation alone.
I have a question. Does anyone remember the time where our district was citing parents for not sending the students to school? Saida, you remember that time? Can anybody, Dr. Alvarez, can you check with staff and see if you can provide data to the board when the district was doing that? Not that.
Well, actually, there's a law that recently passed that prevents school districts from doing that moving forward.
Okay, but aside from the citations, there was other programs that the district was utilizing at the time, like home visits and other things. So,
Okay.
The Child Welfare and Attendance Department is.
is there anything that can be provided to take a look at the different options that were being utilized at that time?
The fear of immigration and the ramp up, and, that's real. And so, depending on if they're going to walk out that day or go or kids are at home, I think, our opportunities, we have to figure out how we're going to do online because it's ramping up. And so the nature of the time have changed. So we just have to be more flexible with the distance learning or however you're supposed to call it because, it's not just here, but they're not coming out. And if the kids, the younger kids have to have the parents.
Yeah, and no, and
Hold on. Can I add this to the topic for our next board study session?
okay.
That way, we've only got 15 minutes.
Okay.
If I can just add one thing, we do have a really successful independent study program.
Yes.
And so if that is a concern of families, I would encourage them to reach out to Child Welfare and Attendance to get more information on how they can possibly be enrolled in that.
And we could do better promoting it too, so parents know
Correct.
that they have those options.
Agreed. In English, Spanish, and all languages that we have, that we need in our district.
Okay, so we're going to keep going. So we keep speaking about these reductions and these projections that we use and we implement in our multi-year projection. So we spoke about areas that we could potentially reduce, and one of the areas that I mentioned was furniture. That was the 4401 object. And so you can see this is 2627, so this will be next year. If you look at our books and supplies category, and if you flip back to your previous page, you'll see that it's at 16.8 million. Well, next year, we're projecting that our budget will only be 11.2 million. And that's going to be because if you look on the right side of the slide, we are backing out the furniture and equipment budgets that we have allocated because we have, again, we've really pushed the schools the last few years. We have a really good purchasing department, and so they have been on top of helping the school sites update and replace their furniture, their classroom desks, their teacher desks, basically everything we can possibly do to get our schools ready. And so we are comfortable being able to reduce that budget significantly, not eliminating it, but reducing it to kind of cut down on cost. The other big cut that we're going to be doing, or reduction in the books and supplies category, is going to be the math adoption. So remember I said, as long as it happens before June 30th and we receive everything, that expense will be there. And so we can back out that expense from the budget next year because in theory, it shouldn't be there. Now, if for some reason, again, we don't get it by June 30th, we will have to move it and it will be in 26-27 budget. But the budget that was scheduled for this year will be available and then reallocated. So it won't be necessarily available, it's still committed, but it will show as there. And if we just continue to go down, so contracts and services, again, we went from 37 million in 25-26 to 36 million. And again, while we were able to make a small reduction in those, again, a lot of the contracts are based on our student and staff need. The final reduction was in capital outlay. We went from 1.4 million to $153,000. So while we are, again, making these reductions, we're not eliminating them completely. And then these reductions will continue through the multi-year projection as we go on. And then I want to bring your attention down to the bottom right-hand side where we have additional salary transfers. So in 26-27, we project that we will be using our LEA Medi-Cal funds to help cover the cost of health aid salaries. And so the cost of their salaries will be moved from unrestricted to a restricted funding source. Right underneath that, we have bus drivers. So we have a transportation reimbursement, and we will be using those restricted funds to be able to pay our bus drivers. And so again, their salaries will be moved from unrestricted to restricted. And then we have mental health funds. And so we're planning on using those to help sustain our mental health staff that we have, our ABA specialist, and we'll be moving their salary from our unrestricted funds to our restricted resources. Right underneath that, we had funds that will be expiring on June 30th of this year. There are universal pre-kindergarten funds. And so in order to make sure we utilize them and didn't send those back to the state, we actually moved funds into TK teacher salaries into those funds to make sure that we spent them within their appropriate guidelines. And so now that we did that in 25-26, we have to move those salaries back into the unrestricted budget. And then the last line on that slide, when we were at the governor's budget workshop, they did say that we would be getting an additional student support block grant award. And it's projected to be around $10 million. We're waiting to get the final number, but that's where we're projected to be around. So that is worked into the 26-27 budget. And we will be using those funds to help sustain our teaching staff.
That sounds like a raise to some teachers.
It could be, or it could be that we still employ them.
We mentioned 40 before. This may mean 35.
That's a different world. I don't live in that world. Okay, so this is the final year that you guys have currently seen in your reports so far, 27-28. Again, same thing. We have updated numbers in our budget year, and so those will all trickle down and inevitably affect the numbers you're going to see in this year. So we've updated our projection for COLA based on the information we received during the governor's budget workshop. We've updated our projected ADA based on our current enrollment. Our step and column is factored in there. Our health and welfare increase is factored in there. We have a reduction to our routine repair and maintenance account of $2 million. And again, this is something that we're doing to try and help make sure we sustain our fiscal solvency. However, this is the year that the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant funds will be exhausted. And so while we had until the end of this year to use them, the end of June 2028 to use them, we don't have enough funds completely in there in the balance to be able to sustain all of the teachers that we moved over there, all of the reading specialists, and all of the coaches. And so we've moved $13.3 million back into the unrestricted column to absorb some of that cost. And then again, we have our health aides, our bus drivers, and our mental health staff that we've also moved in. And then if you notice in this year again, so in the prior year, our deficit spending was only 6.6 million. But you have to remember that we had the student support block grant that absorbed 10 million of that. And so our deficit spending without that would have been around $16.6 million, which is pretty normal. Well, it tracks. This year, the final year, our deficit spending has now gone up to $28 million. That's because we've now used the student support block grant to offset those salaries. And so the teacher salaries are now impacting our budget again. And we've had to move back the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant funded teachers into unrestricted dollars. So that's why you see such a big jump from that year to this year for our deficit spending. And while we will be able to, at second interim, present this information, and we will be able to file, positively because we are able to meet our 3%, which is great, you will notice that our ending fund balance is continuing to decrease in our unrestricted as well as our restricted funding. And so at the end of 27-28, we are projected to have an ending fund balance of 59 million, which consists of 23 million in unrestricted and 35 million in restricted funds. This is the year you haven't seen yet. So you will see this year, this is what we consider our fourth year. You will see this year when we come and bring you our projected budget for 26-27, because at that point, this will now be our third year that we are required to include in our multi-year projection. June? Yes, in June. So while we typically have until the end of February to analyze our assumptions and look at everybody's budgets and work more with the school sites to see who's going to spend what and what departments are going to, go through with their projects and who's not, as of right now, we have not been able to do that just because we normally do that through the month of February. So as of right now, this is where we are. As of right now, we do not meet our 3% minimum requirement. We only have $4.4 million available, and we are $12 million short. Wow. So again, we typically work on our projections and our assumptions and reanalyzing the budget. It's not a quick process because, as you saw in previous slides, we look at all of those numbers. We look at all of those objects. We look at all of the departments, all of the school sites, all of the positions. And so it's a timing issue, and so we need more time to be able to analyze everything to see where we can potentially be. And so as we go through this, when we make our assumptions and we analyze everything, if we are unable to find enough reductions and adjustments that can be made without anything being negotiated, when we bring our budget, we will have to bring a budget reduction plan at that time. Obviously, that's something we really don't want to do. We're hoping that we'll be able to figure it out and make either additional cuts or maybe the state will give us more money. I don't know. But that's
How do we
that's-
handle the March 15th notices if we won't have this final till June?
So that, because it is a 3 to 4 year projection, that would not be a conversation that we would look at this year. In the current year, the next 2 years, we are able to meet our reserves, right? It is that fourth year that we're really going to have to look deeper and take, I think, more drastic approaches. And so it would be too premature of us to consider that right now. These
Another
would be
diplomacy.
conversations that we would have in the fall. Once the state does release their actual adopted budget, once we are able to confirm our enrollment, like we're able to see who retired, who left, who promoted, we'll have a better picture of those 3 upcoming years. And so depending on what our position is at that point, then that would shape our conversation.
And typically, a SERP would be 5 years out, so it may not be able to help us.
Right. In order for us to offer a SERP, you have to prove that you will generate a savings. And given the demographics of who we have in our district, I am not sure that we would be able to do that.
Thank you. Final questions? Final?
My stomach hurts.
So as you guys can see, there's a lot of information that goes into this. This was a very simplified presentation. I know it doesn't seem like that, but for us and what we're accustomed to, this is very simplified data. And so the data that we've presented here lives on spreadsheets that have 1 million tabs and 1,000 lines and a gajillion columns. So
Well done. Yes.
Well done.
thank you guys.
We appreciate
And entertaining enough.
And we have a link to this somewhere on our website, a link to our actual budget.
So we do have, we do post all of our financial reports on our fiscal services website. They're posted either the night of the board meeting or early the next morning when the staff comes in. But for this presentation, I'm sure we could post it.
Well, no, I just mean all of the budgets, because, yes. Okay.
And then if any members of the community have questions, they are more than happy, they're more than willing, able to reach you guys. for
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
questions, So,
Yes, and in fact, sometimes it's better to meet one-on-one with people because again, this is a lot of information and it'll give them opportunity to ask questions.
of course, well, thank you so much for everything, keeping our books intact, and it's a lot of numbers, but
Yes.
thank you.
Great job, ladies.
Thank
as
you
always.
all. Thank you so much.
Strong work.
Okay, board, motion and a second.
So move.
Second?
Okay, for adjournment. They're way ahead of me as usual. Okay, everyone? Aye. Time 12:59. Go team.